Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works on Thursday, November 7th, 2024. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Well, we have had a bit of a switch up on our committee here, and I would like to welcome for the first time Councillor Eadie as a member of the Public Works Committee. In his time at City Hall, this is his first time on Public Works. Welcome, Councillor Eadie.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so I'd like to welcome Councillor Chambers back to the Public Works Committee. It's his fifth time being on Public Works.
Really?
It is your fifth time, as is mine. I guess we've been in and out of this committee a few times. And to our elder statesman-esque, Councillor Sharma.
Stateswoman?
Stateswoman, that's what it is,
Thank you.
stateswoman. 13 years on Public Works.
There's a lot to do with
13 years, so.
That's a legacy.
That is a legacy. I'd like to welcome you too, and I'd like to welcome our clerks, Mr. Prinsloo. I'd like to welcome people sitting in the gallery, people watching online. I see Councillor Gilroy's here. Now, before we start the committee meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis, and that our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3. I apologize for being a bit late. Councillor Chambers and I were at a crime prevention meeting downtown, very enlightening. And we're here now. Now, could I have someone to make a motion for the minutes, to approve the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Sharma does. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All
Madam
right.
Chair, I'd like to suspend the rules to hear from Councillor Cindy Gilroy in item 2
Oh, I don't know
and
about that.
item 8.
Item 2 and item 8. Okay, do we have transits in the room here too? Okay, because Councillor Gilroy is speaking to a transit issue. All right, so let's see who we've got for delegations. We've got a list of
Call the question
delegations.
there.
Pardon me?
Call the question.
Oh, yes, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. And yes, Councillor Sharma is, or Councillor Gilroy is the only councillor here to speak. So Councillor Gilroy, would you like to come up, please, and speak to, I believe, your motion?
Yes, I just have 2 items, actually. The first one I'll just do just quickly. I've put a motion forward for a crosswalk so people can access Kinsman Sherbrooke pools on Sherbrooke Street. Now on Maryland, there is also a crosswalk at St. Matthews, so it'd be a really good connection to people on the other side of Maryland to be able to access Sherbrooke Pool, but also to a lot of the seniors that live in the senior building right there on Lions Place. So just trying to create that access point, that pedestrian crossway, I think it'd be really great for the community. So I'm looking forward to that discussion, and hopefully you can get the administration to review that.
Sure, we'll send it off and they'll do their big analysis, their engineering analysis, and
Is
report
that
back.
a lit up crosswalk?
Yeah, because it's got multiple lanes. It really requires a higher,
Yeah, no, we're looking at
a
it.
little bit more elevation and stuff. Okay, so my motion on the Winnipeg Transit Plus eligibility criteria, I want to thank Councillor Eadie for seconding them. This comes from kind of conversations I've had within the community and learning I don't need Transit Plus, so I haven't accessed it. So I'm really learning from the community on that, on our Transit Plus and on our policies. And what I'm learning is that we're having issues with even our own staffing are struggling with our policy and the eligibility criteria. And I want to make sure that we are ensuring that for our own staff, our occupational therapists, and maybe even doctors that we work with, that our eligibility criteria is kind of connecting the dots between their professional ethics and also to really, I've heard that our policy is very old and dated. It's supposed to be having a new policy coming, but it's been kind of years in the making. And so we really need to review this policy. And so I worked with the community advocates that are in the community that actually use this. So I won't talk too much. I'll let them kind of go into deep diving into their own experiences. But what I think we need here Chair Councillor Lukes, is maybe for the Human Rights Committee to maybe work on this with us. Because really, I think there needs to be a moderator from the community and also with our public service. So what I'm hoping is that maybe they moderate the discussion. So making sure that there's kind of a third party in there, listening to the needs of the community, listening to transit and trying to bring together a policy. Of course, transit will have to write it, but maybe that policy can go back, once it's written, can go back to the Human Rights Committee for review. I don't know all the ins and outs with our standing policy committee, but standing policy can even make sure that we direct that, just so that they have a chance to hear the community, hear what they have to say, and really make sure that we have a policy that reflects the needs of what's going on in the community, that we have a policy we can be proud of as a workforce to ensure that our own staff feels like they can follow this policy and that it reflects their own ethics. And I think that that's really vital. You know, I'm having aging parents now, so I'm starting to think about some of the supports that they need getting around. And I'm not sure if our own Transit Plus would even allow some of the aids that my parents might be requiring. So as we, I will let the community kind of really take a deeper dive into that. But this is where this is coming from. I really think it's important that we take this leadership role, ensuring that we have a policy that that allows access for people that really, really need Transit Plus. And so we need to take that deep dive. So I'm hoping that that this committee will support that work and really listen to the people in there out there that use Transit Plus every single day.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your presentation. Councillor Edie, you've got a question to start with you.
Yes, as I did second the motion, there was a meeting we had with Transit Plus yesterday. It was mostly EAs, but I attended it. We had discussions about the criteria to be able to be a Transit Plus user. And they do have some advisory positions that advise Transit Plus from the disability community. So there is some of that, but I'm just, it's kind of, did you know, because of this structure before, and I'm not quite sure how it works now, but under the Access Advisory Committee, when changes used to come along, we did used to, and AAC is now part of the Human Rights Committee. So I think that's a legitimate call. Although we didn't have any direct input, but we did get to review whatever outcomes were coming from, at the time, Handy Transit. So I don't think that that's I think that's a good call. Thank you, Councillor N. I'm just wondering, have you thought about, and this was brought up by one of the other councillors' offices, although I've had it in mind, we're moving to this new grid primary network with stops that are further from each other and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that there'll be a higher demand, especially from seniors who may be able-bodied, but traveling, especially in the winter, to longer distances to get to their bus stop? Do you think we should be looking at allowing easier access to Transit Plus in those situations?
I do think that we have to, I don't think that our criteria right now is meeting the needs of the people that are out there. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. I do think that we do have to listen to the community groups that are out there. I'm not a Transit Plus user, so I wouldn't have as familiarity with this, but I also don't want this to get too complicated with the new transit system that's going to be coming forward, because I think we're going to need time to figure that out. And in some places, it's going to be more of a benefit as they have these feeder routes and on-demand service. In some areas is going to improve access. So I think we got to let that unfold. But right now, I do think we got to look at what's going on with the Transit Plus system and how we can improve it right now.
Yeah, I'm eligible, but I don't use Transit Plus because it's more convenient to use the conventional system. just a last question. What schools need to be accessed through that corridor? Is that like Greenway or what schools are close to there?
For the
By Sherbrooke.
crosswalk to Sherbrooke?
Oh, sorry, yes, you know what, there's really, the University of Winnipeg would be ideal candidate for this too, because it is an access and a lot of people travel either through bike, walking, through that corridor, so it would be really a big connection to, I think, the University of Winnipeg, and just that connection, you know, we have two big lanes of traffic on Maryland and on Sherbrooke, and we have put a crosswalk there on Maryland, kind of right at actually St. Matthews. So there could be a really good benefit to that connection point between Sherbrooke Street as well, to connect people into that other side of the community, to the pool, of course, to the University of Winnipeg, and just being able to access, you know, maneuver around all those the traffic that's there.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor.
And the seniors, thanks.
Yeah,
Councillor Chambers has a question of Councillor Gilroy.
Thank you. Thank you through your chair to Councillor. Thank you for your presentation this morning. As former chair of the Human Rights Committee of Council, I don't know if you're aware or did you know that there is a subcommittee for accessibility that you can meet with and discuss these issues. The subcommittee would then be responsible for bringing it to the larger board, to the Human Rights Committee of Council for discussion and deliberation on a potential solution through policy that would be recommended to council. Are you aware of that process?
no, I didn't know that, but I think that would be perfect then. I think this would fit well then with what the work that the committee's already doing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, now, Mr. Clerk, our next delegate.
Next up, to be heard with respect to the Winnipeg Transit Plus Policy Eligibility Criteria, which is report 2, we have Patrick Stewart.
Good morning.
Good morning, councilors. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for being present, for your public service. Just for the record, my name is Patrick Stewart. I work for the Independent Living Resource Center. We are a community-based nonprofit that provides program services, information, and at times advocacy on systemic issues for people with disabilities. So we're here today to strongly encourage the motion, as it has also just been amended a moment ago. I don't really have a very long presentation at all. I'm certainly available to answer questions. I guess what I would say is that our sort of orientation to the situation is that over maybe I'll say that the past year, we've been contacted by individuals, some of which are passengers, with some serious concerns about, I guess, not just the intake process, but the assessment process as well. And I'm not sure if that was sort of discussed a moment ago. So not just who has access to it, but often when people have access to the service, their situation might change physically. If someone has maybe a deteriorating health condition, a change in their mobility equipment, a change in their needs, basically, that they may be seeking an accommodation of sort. So just a way of providing the service in a different fashion. I'm not here to sort of talk about any specific situations. But I should mention that we don't have an intake process. Like, we don't have a shingle out front that says, come and let us know what's going on with you in Transit Plus. People normally contact us when they're kind of at the end of their rope. So we get very long stories with a lot of detail and kind of often go over months. And some of those stories kind of right now have been very long because people have been waiting a long time for an assessment or having frustrations with it.
Waiting for the assessment.
Waiting for the assessment to happen. And another sort of common accommodation that we hear about is about vehicle choice. That there's different vehicles that provide service for Transit Plus, and sometimes people would contact us, say that they because maybe the rear axle of a bus is bumpy and causes them pain, or they have a difficult time getting down to the level of getting into a car, that might be a difficulty. So that's an accommodation that they would be seeking. So I'm just maybe for information's sake. That's something we've been hearing a lot of. But the information that we have been receiving sort of on the issue, and when we've looked at it closer and looked at it in some significant detail, indicates that it's not just sort of the individuals that are, being put off by a system that's maybe overwhelmed at the moment, but that some of the real issues are structural and systemic. And this is kind of a tough one. It's a complicated issue for sure, but at the center of any conversation about accommodations is our human rights code. So the Manitoba Human Rights Code is the highest law in the land, as far as I'm aware. And having access to Transit Plus and having access to accommodations within Transit Plus, the same as any other organization, whether it's, public, private, or otherwise, is based upon an understanding that a reasonable accommodation process, that there is a process to follow, that they're denied based upon safety concerns, financial concerns, et cetera, but that is the lens in which accommodations are looked at. So they're not looked at through different types of customer service policies, let's say, that would be inappropriate at times. So the Human Rights Committee would definitely be the appropriate place, I think, to be looking at this very critical issue. And it is an incredibly critical issue. And is, $1 million question, literally and figuratively. Having access to Transit Plus comes with a cost. The gatekeeping of access and accommodations comes with a price tag. It can be a significant price tag. And that makes this situation very challenging because, you can't necessarily reverse engineer it. You can't sort of say, this is the policy and then try to shoehorn it into an understanding of human rights. It has to begin with the human rights and then your policy comes from that, right? Trying to assess whether Transit Plus and Fixed Transit are equal, because that is what the city's responsibility is to provide a comparable level of service, is certainly challenging because even though it's both transportation, it's a very different model. So a deliberate and conscientious look at this process and a look at the concerns that have come to us that we haven't fully disclosed here in this meeting, we welcome that process. The end. Thanks.
Okay, so Councillor Chambers has a question. Councillor Chambers?
Yes, and thank you for your presentation this morning. Without breaking any confidentiality, can you just reference a scenario by which somebody has contacted you with respect to an issue that they feel is not equitable?
Sure. Well, the vehicle choice one would probably be an easy one for me to reference because there's been several of them. They'll be for different reasons, but that would be a common denominator. So someone that I've spoken with recently has been waiting for, I think they said April was the first time that they were sort of given a ticket, I think was the language that they used. So sort of a number, you're in queue, right, like at a deli. And that they had gone through several of these tickets and had gotten different information from different people, who's on the end of the line as to kind of where their request was. And I spoke with this individual probably 2 weeks ago, maybe was the last time. And it was really a hard conversation. What they were looking for was an accommodation where they were only sent cars rather than vans because it was too painful to kind of do it the other way. And that's what they had said, right? So in a broad sense, we have, raised these issues different times with Transit Plus, Winnipeg Transit about the vehicle choice. And we know that one particular situation, right? We talk about policy, we're talking about hundreds of people, right? But those conversations, I guess, and the information that we have, have had sort of access to, don't line up. That sort of the broadly, like the statement very broadly has been that it's maybe a frivolous request, that people are seeking to have vehicle choice and it's not appropriate because it's not a taxi service or something like that. And certainly if the frivolous request should be denied, there has to be an assessment process at some point. But that sort of broad take on it just doesn't match up with the phone calls that we receive and the information that we have. So there's a disconnect there. We're getting sort of information one way and then kind of hearing a general understanding the other. They don't match up.
And
So
what
we
should
think-
it be? Like what if someone can't use a vehicle or feels uncomfortable in the vehicle?
Well, getting the assessment first would help. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how we've approached it. Like when we first have got involved with some of these situations, the way that we have been approaching Winnipeg Transit is not to advocate for or against any particular accommodation. And that's how we entered this this summer in a particular case was not saying that it should be this or it should be that. Just that it needs to be assessed as an accommodation. It can't be assessed as a matter of customer service policy or baggage policy or different types of policies that are in place. Accommodations are individually based. They're, denied based upon safety or, really broad operational concerns. But I mean, we have all that's there, right? We don't have to sort of make this up off the top of our head. That process is in place.
Right.
So the way that the situations have been looked at, again, some of the information that we have, it just doesn't match up that they're necessarily being looked at that way. So we're not here to advocate that this accommodation happen and this one shouldn't, just that there's a process in place that they're looked at fairly.
So based on the concerns that come to your office, they're needs-based,
Yeah,
very much needs-based?
well, sure. Yeah, the person that I would sort of cite is,
And I get the fact that, from the service perspective, yes, the need is there. But when it comes down to the granularity of what type of vehicle,
yeah.
that's also needs-based?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The ones that we have worked most significantly on are individuals that say that they're in physical pain because of not getting the accommodation granted, and that physical pain is not just, it's making it prohibitive for them to use the service. And that they're using, taxi cabs and, having to come up with, I've talked with somebody who wanted to empty their Transit Plus account so that they could use the money for taxis, right? So, I mean, there's a problem there. And somebody who's going to do that, I take their concerns seriously. I'm not an occupational therapist. I don't work for Transit Plus. I'm not the person to make that assessment, right? But I can certainly say that you deserve an assessment based upon what you just told me.
Okay, Counselor Edie?
In terms of independent living resource center across disabilities, so all disabilities may or may not call the ILRC for assistance. What have you heard or concerns? There are certain things that would make somebody ineligible to use, say, Transit Plus because their cognitive ability or whatever is an issue. Have you heard anything about in those regards?
No. The concerns that I have received by and large have to do with assessments for people that already have access. I haven't been receiving anything from individuals about a cognitive or a different type of disability. I think when we think Transit Plus, you're right. We normally think physical disabilities. But individuals with different disabilities that aren't necessarily primarily mobility related may have access to the systems, of course.
Anyway, you do have to be able to know how to book trips and do all that stuff. And anyway, the other, I heard you mention bumpy rides.
Yeah.
So I don't know what vehicle is going to prevent the vehicle from shaking on a number of the roads that our Transit Plus vehicles will be use. But like, is it more related to, I know, like I've been in a taxi van actually this morning. They roll and rock a lot more than a regular vehicle, right? So is that kind of where they're coming from, or no vehicles, the potholes and bad roads? I mean,
sure. Well, I guess I'm going to give a kind of a two-part answer. One, I mean, Transit Plus is big here. I mean, Winnipeg Transit's here. They can answer the questions about the vehicles. Basically, like a couple of years ago, there was really broad. We received tons of complaints from people because they were experiencing pain in the rear axle of the larger vehicles being high. And this was a manufacturer problem. The vehicles were, I'm trying to remember what the word escapes me. They were fixed, there was a process to kind of adjust those. I guess sort of a way of thinking about it. Yeah, with the bumpy roads. Yeah. Of course, that's always going to be an issue. But at the sort of another thing to consider at the heart of an accommodation request like this, when somebody says I need a car and not a bus because of these reasons. I can't get my walker in, I can't whatever, is just that people generally understand their own needs well, right? And in my own personal experience, I don't come across many people that are asking for accommodations or supports or a different way of doing things that is, based on some sort of entitlement. I mean, sure, obviously that can exist anywhere and with any service, but generally people, and as you said, Ross, you choose your own transportation means because it meets, your needs. And we're going to have other bridges to cross with this. Like when it comes to the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, there's requirements to allow passengers to travel with their personal attendants for free. That's going to impact, policy and can people declare their own need for an attendant, an attendant and so forth. But that's an important part of the process, right? There has to be rules in place, but when somebody declares a need for something based on their own experience, they should have somewhere to take it.
You have to try to accommodate.
Yeah.
A last question, you kind of, like I choose my, anyway, I
Any
choose
more
the most
questions?
convenient, but, yeah, I do.
Okay,
Actually,
good.
this is an important.
Sorry,
question.
good.
So I haven't served on the Access Advisory Committee for a number of years since it got merged with Human Rights. But the transportation standard coming from the province, does that standard, which is to be in place and implemented by 2027, does that have like you probably were involved in that?
Yeah, I was on the development
So
committee of
what's
it
in this new transportation
on this topic.
standard that might cover off like this topic?
Well, it's fairly general. The Accessibility for Manitobans Act requires that there is eligibility criteria. Really broadly, what they require is that the eligibility is grouped into sort of unlimited access, have access to Transit Plus when you need it, sort of a limited access, which can be seasonal. It can be based upon, maybe having a recent injury or something like that. So there's kind of conditional ones, right? And temporary ones as well. Now, the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, not just the transportation standard, but all of the standards really stands on the shoulders of our Human Rights Code. It all stands on a basic understanding that if you provide a service to the public, you have a responsibility to ensure that you do what you need to do to make sure it's available to everybody, right? So it is general. It's not as prescriptive, but as I kind of mentioned, an accommodation is always awarded on an individual basis. So that understanding is kind of baked into the act. So it's not very prescriptive when it comes to who gets access and what. It's just that it has to be based on human rights.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll be talking to the public service about this. Now, our next representative, our delegation.
Next up on the same item is Debbie McLeod.
Good morning, Madam Chair
Good morning,
and
stranger.
council members. My name's Debbie McLeod. I am the Accessibility Coordinator for Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities. And I am also a member of the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee to the Human Rights Committee of Council. Beautiful morning. Look at that. We've actually got blue sky. So this morning I am here to speak about, thank you, Dr. Gilmer, or councilman, council person, that's better. For bringing this motion forward. I've had many discussions with Transit Plus on different issues. One thing that I spent a fair bit of time on the other day was trying to find the policies for Transit Plus. I don't know where they are. I couldn't find them. I did find the policies or the bylaws that City Transit uses, but couldn't find anything for Transit Plus. So that kind of put up a red flag with me. So to me, if I can't find it, it's not transparent. This is a public service that needs to be transparent. I need to be able to know that when I get phone calls from the public, that I can actually give them correct, appropriate information or guide them to the appropriate person. I don't know how to do that right now. I need to know the rules to play the game. And if I don't know the rules, I can't play the game. So transparency is huge. Also the policies, wherever they are. Seeing as nobody can find them, I'm guessing that they've been there for a while. And that it's probably time that we take a peek at them, just revisit them. Take a look, find out the kind of work that we need to do and involve the appropriate parties. But when we're making those decisions, we have to involve and ask the people who are actually using it. Everybody at this table, everybody in this room can empathize and sympathize, but you don't know because you're not sitting in this chair. So please ask me my opinion. Show me your ideas. I will more than gladly look at them and I will tell you my ideas. My husband and I are buying a truck. Well, he's buying the truck. I want something that's got more of a covered back area because we have a large dog and I have a wheelchair. So if we put that in the back, in the second cab, there's no room for my wheelchair. So that's going to sit in the cargo where it's going to get cold. So I'm advising my husband on the vehicle that I think it would work for all of us. That would work for him for ice fishing, would work for me with my chair. The same idea has got to follow through with transit. If we want transparency, then we need to be open and communicative at every level. There's a motto that we use. It says, nothing about us without us. And I don't know of one person who is what I call differently abled that would not agree with that. One of the items that we have been speaking about at the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee meetings is transit. We have a few that I think we have 5 that are on the list. Transit is one of them. So the subcommittees have complete divergence of people with different abilities and gifts. And they are the ones to talk to. They are the ones who would be ideal, either that or, as Councilman Eady said, the old Accessibility Advisory Committee. Maybe that's something that we could possibly rethink on a volunteer basis to act as advisors for any policy changes, corrections, additions, deletions. Language definitely needs to change. That might be an idea as to where we could go. If it's done on a volunteer basis, there's no pay being required. You're getting people from the community that you actually need to talk to and listen to. There, I don't see that that would be a big issue. It's a volunteer basis, and I know of a number of people who would gladly volunteer. So that is my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time.
Counselor Chambers and Counselor Eady have questions, as do I. So Counselor Eady, let's start. Quick question.
Yeah, so what I mentioned was, well, like you, I actually ran for politics as a result of advocating. I was with MLPD and I was actually a representative on what was then called the Handy Transit Advisory Committee, which MLPD used to put somebody on. I think that structure was broken. I had a big concern had a discussion with our former mayor who combined the Access Advisory Committee into a human rights and just so you know, it was all volunteer. And it was chaired by council members. Councillor Sharm and I were actually put in a lot of years on it until it was 4 years on it. But I was one of the founding members convincing Mayor Thompson to do this, and it had great success. But I think within all the human rights issues that the city deals with, I think some degree we've lost our focus in terms of for persons with disabilities. The question so the league also has members. You heard a lot from the members, right, about problems with Transit Plus.
Mm-hmm.
You have it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm trying to base it. So the searching for the policy, the last time I checked, Transit Plus has a webpage under the city of Winnipeg. And I believe, did you search that webpage
Yep.
for the policy and you couldn't find it?
Yep.
It wasn't there.
Couldn't find it. There's a small section where it says Winnipeg Transit Plus, and I believe there's 2 subheadings. Neither one of them had anything to do with policies.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation this morning. Just to let you know that there is an Access Advisory Subcommittee group that you're more than welcome to participate and provide information to the Human Rights Committee of Council. I can also provide you with the coordinator for the Human Rights Committee of Council, Ali Raposo, whose responsibility is to bring all of these matters forward to the Human Rights Committee of Council. So I will definitely plug you into that and make sure that you have a voice for input.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know, Ali, we email back and forth all the time. But thank you very much. I would very much appreciate it, Councilman Chambers. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, just on that note, did you not know about that avenue, Debbie?
Which one?
The Human Rights Committee, the subcommittee
Oh, yes, I'm on the subcommittee.
of the Human Rights Committee? You're on the subcommittee
I'm on the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee.
of the Human Rights.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are aware of that. Now, in
Yeah.
terms of the policies not being available on the internet, did you reach out to anyone in our transit department at all? Do you have any contacts there?
Teresa, that I know.
Yeah. And were you able to find where these policies exist?
I haven't asked Teresa.
Okay, you haven't asked.
No, I was actually just trying to find it on my own, to be honest. I'm not super computer literate, so I do a lot of hunt and peck, which is the old typewriter. I do a lot of that, and I could not find it.
Sure, but it shouldn't be that hard either.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
you.
navigation is always a problem with any kind of a system, and it's incredibly frustrating for many of the members that call me. So yeah,
Well, I was just
navigation
gonna
is,
say, in the role that you hold, you want to have access to this type of information so you can disseminate it.
okay. Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. Councillor Chambers and I were very pleased to attend the Transit Advisory, I don't have the correct term here, Transit Plus Policy Advisory Committee meeting a while back. Do you bring any of these concerns forward there? Like,
Yeah, does MLPD still have a rep that's appointed to that?
On the PAC, yeah, that's me.
Well, you are appointed to that as well.
Yes, sorry, I didn't include that. I should have.
Oh, you are.
Yes, I am on the Policy Advisory Committee. Yeah. We have brought it to their attention. And been told that policies are in the process. As far as I know, no one has been consulted on those policies. So if we're in the process of birthing a new one, then I want to be involved in the gestation.
Okay. Okay, so we have Transit Plus here today. We'll be asking some questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. Nice seeing you.
Thank you very much.
Right. Mr. Clerk, our next delegation.
Next up on the same item, we have Melissa Graham.
Good morning, Ms. Graham.
Morning, counselors. Good to see you on this beautiful morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here as the past two of us in support of Councillor Gilroy's motion. I think it's really critical to our community, as you've already heard. I just want to point out a few points, both as an ED perspective, as the executive director of MLPD. Oh, sorry, I should have introduced myself. I'm Melissa Graham. I'm the executive director of the Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities. For those who may not be able to see me, I'm also a power chair user, and I use Transit Plus as well. So I just have a few quick points to make to sort of wrap up what the previous speakers have said. So the three of us have met with several other disability organizations as well around a number of concerns regarding Transit Plus, and I would say these concerns have built up from new information, but also concerns we've had over a period of time, right? As disability community organizations, we're often put in the position that Patrick is, where community members that have built up a relationship with us come to us in times of need, expecting that we can support and help them navigate systems. This, to me, is a reasonable expectation. It's something we often do in our work. As my dear colleague Debbie can attest, we support our community with all kinds of different needs, from everything hoarding and housing to working with employers to ensure access to an accessible parking space. But for whatever reason, the perception is when we go to support our community with Transit Plus, and I get the perception that it's sort of questioned why we're there. And often those requests get kicked up to me just because there is so much difficulty in trying to support someone when we can show that we have consent. And like Patrick, I don't often work with people that are trying to get into Transit Plus. These are people that have already been found eligible for Transit Plus, that are just trying to seek an accommodation. You'll remember, Councillor Luke, that I came back, I think it was here, I think last year, maybe spoke a little bit about the issue at Williams Lane and all those folks. That was an issue that has come up again for some folks, because with the new transit system we have, their accommodations are no longer listed in the system. So it's things like that, and it's just, frankly, it seems very strange to me that here we have a service that was designed by the disability community. Historically, MLPD, as you were saying, Councillor, we have 2 reps on the PAC. We were one of the founding organizations of that service, and yet for whatever reason, it's one of the most difficult services for us to intervene for our community when our community asks that of us. And maybe it's something I'm missing because I'm new to Winnipeg, but it doesn't seem like it should be that hard for folks to get help with asking for their accommodation when they're asking for that support of us. Additionally, sorry, to take a breath and talk too fast. Another concern I have as a user of the service, I also have a social work degree. I joke with my husband that I'm kind of embarrassed about my social work degree. And with all due respect for anyone else that has a professional background of working with the disability community, there is a reason we need people with lived experience at that table with you. My social work education and my personal lived experience education as a person with a disability, those often conflict with each other. We're trained as social workers not to think that people with disabilities understand their own needs, right? And I think we have a policy right now that very much unfortunately reflects that perspective. And not only makes it difficult for our community to access services, but it also makes it difficult for us as a community to work with them. The PAC was mentioned. The PAC is a great group of volunteer reps they do not deal directly with issues one-on-one. It's not like people from the community are gonna go to the PAC with their issues when they're desperate to try and get a vehicle need. They're gonna come to the organization that they have a relationship with. I work with individuals that are so tired of fighting the Transit Plus system, they've actually given up. I follow up with them and they say, Melissa, I'm sorry, I don't wanna fight this anymore. Like, that to me is heartbreaking. And I don't think anyone at Transit Plus has those intentions, but the fact that that is happening is not okay. The final point I'll just make really quickly, as a Transit Plus user myself, we have these new vehicles that are coming out, and I don't want to muddy the waters by getting too deep in the conversation about these new vehicles, but I am a little bit concerned about them. For those of you that don't know me, I come from Toronto, don't hold that against me. We've had these vehicles in Toronto for a while. I hurt my back on them. And that was just going over a Toronto pothole. Toronto potholes have nothing on Winnipeg potholes, I'll tell you. And I'm not someone who hurts my back super easy, but it is a weak spot on my body, and it kept me out of work for 5 days. So I would hope if I needed to request an accommodation to not have those vehicles come to my house, that lived experience would be respected, and I wouldn't be sorry. It really bothers me because that was a lot of pain, and I had to like get written letter off work. It was a whole issue. But when I think about that experience for me, as someone who's pretty, service savvy, I think about what our community goes through every day, just trying to request the right vehicle for their bodies. And that was so much red tape. It's not meeting with the human rights perspective that I think that city wants for their transit system. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions? I think you did a very poignant presentation. We understand.
Thanks.
We hear you. Oh, somebody's got one. Sorry. Pardon?
Or so a comment. It'll be easier to become a Winnipeg Jets fan than a Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
Winnipeg Jets fan. There you go.
Did you have a question, Councillor Edie? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just one, like the statement, nothing with us without us, right?
Nothing worse with us.
MLPD and the ILRC closely connected. It's independence, right? So I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that the system is, you're right, the workers are not trying to cause a problem, but I think you're suggesting this system doesn't allow for persons with disabilities to have independence. Is that what you're saying?
I think what I'm saying is that, when persons with disability request accommodation, because this is what we're talking about, we're talking about like people that have already been intaked into the system that are requesting accommodations. First of all, it starts from the perspective of questioning that need. And then I think as anyone, when they ask for support, they're met with some resistance around that support. And to me, having support does not go against independent living. It's like any person with or without a disability would like, I bring support people with when I go to like a hospital appointment, just because, sometimes those systems are difficult to navigate. That's nothing against anyone's independence. Right?
You're looking for
People should be
consumer
able to
control.
request the support that they need to be able to access and transit independently.
Consumer control, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Who do we have for delegations now?
Now, our last delegation is Mr. David Grant, who's registered to speak to the entire agenda with the exceptions of items 7 and 8.
Oh, the entire agenda. All right. And he's here somewhere. There he is. There he is.
Morning.
Good morning.
On the topic of transit changes, on a positive note, this plan seems to have been laid out very logically. It does make very large radical changes. Odds are that paying customers may be deterred from using transit when they face some of these changes. In dissent, one must realize that transit communications have been based on untrue claims for many years. There is no indication that the authors of this report have considered the downside for customers in having to wait for a second bus to complete their trip. Some folks will have longer commute times. In trying to emulate larger systems like big city transit, our transit seems to be ignoring the fact that users of big systems have fewer alternatives than folks here. Mess with a New York City customer and they still have to ride the transit the following week. There's no other way of getting to their office. For many Winnipeg Transit customers, if you mess with them, they can carpool or drive the next week instead. BRT failed because it takes longer off-peak, and it failed to take, in its initial years, it failed to take passengers directly to their previous destinations along Pembina and downtown. Expect more of your riders to vote with their feet in 2025 as they face those changes. So I'm sure the transit folks are aware of that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. On number 2, Transit Plus, I want to thank Patrick and the other delegations for explaining this topic so thoroughly. Transit Plus is a service, and its users have the option to leave comments. There is an advisory committee, as was mentioned. Being ignored by the carrier is a valid concern, and some of the other problems those folks have. My fellow delegations seem to be saying that this problem is big and cannot be fixed using the current rules. If true, then this item is essential. And one topic that was mentioned was having a volunteer advisory committee. That sounds like a great idea. Outside of the current one involving staff. Topic 3, movement of goods. This one seems to involve the Trucking Association and a few civil servants, but it seems to ignore the less than truckload industry, which is packages and building materials and so on. They have no rep on this group. And I would suggest that they have been disadvantaged. The people trying to deliver a package somewhere are disadvantaged by the removal of lawful loading zones and the way that in recent days, hijackers are taking over, hijacking the delivery vehicle. That's a very perturbing thing, and hopefully some action will be taken to prevent that. On topic 4, traffic on Cambridge. As a disclosure, my son lives a few houses east of Cambridge, and I have friends on the Cambridge, and they want you to act. Local residents are certainly vocal, but the traffic increases are not unique and deserve no waste of engineering time. Recall that NIMBYs on Waverly already got their way, and they diverted traffic that was going northbound on Waverly, and now those folks hop over a couple blocks and go north on Cambridge to get where they're going. So Burl Ives and the swallowed a spider to catch the fly song comes to mind. Please do not go down this futile road. In these justifications is the fact that very rapid immigration and densification are causing very large increases in traffic flow. This is happening across the city. I suggest that you not act. If you do, you will owe similar action to the hundreds of other roads which are facing large traffic increases. On 5, bylaw enforcement, good analysis. Program cost is mentioned. Is the cost to those fines also compared to other places? Do you fine unknowing victims more here than happens in other cities? There's no mention of compliance versus elsewhere. Do some bylaws have less than 10% compliance? Because I would think if you're analyzing your bylaw enforcement program, you'd want to know how effective the rules are. And if people don't know about them and there isn't much enforcement, then there may be very high levels of non-compliance. On line painting, we've discussed this before. 6 months seems like a long delay to wait for a report. This will take us into the spring paint season. And I remind you that if paving is done correctly, and it almost always is, the line between pours of concrete and the bituminous overlays suffices to keep folks in line. That's what we use in the wintertime after the painted lines wear away. We use that line between paved stripes. On topic 9, the lit pedestrian corridor, this item does not explain what is involved. Does this mean overhead lighting so that pedestrians can be seen more clearly in the dark? from a distance? Does it mean flashing amber lights? If the latter, please ask that this include a red light reminder for those on foot to wait for 5+ seconds, then the red light goes out before setting foot on the road. Drivers need several seconds to be able to stop safely after the flashing amber lights come on. The most dangerous and very common mistake, we've probably all seen it happen, is where someone rushes into the street with no glance left or right, less than a second after pushing the crosswalk button. I would ask that we start using that to a reminder red light. They use them elsewhere. Item 10, Portage and Main. I note that absent from this topic and this agenda item and elsewhere is any comparison by a professional engineer of the various means of mitigating this concourse ceiling leakage. How was this critical step missed? There was people saying it's leaky, it'll cost a lot of money. Now, was there a comparison of means of mitigating that problem? The problem was wet floor and dripping water. Anyway, people, because this seems to have been missed, people see this as a new level of governance failure at City Hall. To commit to spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars, to wasting thousands of hours of traveler time without a good sound basis for the action now underway. Good governance requires a full report on the alternatives. We seem to have none thus far. And I would thank you for the time.
Okay, all right. So do we have any comments or questions, I guess it is, from the committee members? I'll maybe put a did you know out there. Did you know that the Southwest Rapid Transit Corridor new routing system is producing or is better than expected, better than anticipated? The ridership is more than they anticipated. I don't know if you've taken the bus on Pembina. You can't get on the bus on Pembina. If you get on at Dalhousie at Shoppers Drug Mart, forget it. You won't get a seat. It'll be so full. You say it was failure. Okay, I hear you on the leg of the route. That would have been, I too agree, would have been more desirable down Pembina, but we're here today. It is super successful. Did you know that?
Yes, and I do take the bus fairly frequently. And when I have to go down for things downtown, if I take it, of course, I get in further south than those poor people at Dalhousie who can't get on. And when you're riding in peak hours, I'm glad to have my seat that I got down closer to the perimeter. But for those people, it is disappointing. And that's one of the reasons that I had proposed at a transit advisory meeting at the U of W, the idea of an off-peak low-price pass, monthly pass. And that was translated, as I think I've mentioned, by your predecessor, Mr. Allard, into an everybody gets on for reduced any time of the day. But if we'd had the off-peak one, then the people who could travel at other times of day, like me, would be traveling at 9:30 or 10, not at 7:45 when there is no room on the bus. And that is one of the ongoing problems with transit's operation, is being able to get more capacity. They have no more buses, they have no more drivers to run extra. But that Pembina route, the Blue Line, is a wonderful thing. And I've adapted to how to get around when I get to the north end of it. But it's just that that's a concern for people who are used to taking their route from A to B across east and west across the city, that those folks will have a problem when the route changes and it takes a little longer, or they're waiting for a bus that got there before they were, that sort of thing. So anyway, thanks very much for your comment.
Okay, all right. So thank you very much. Any other questions? No? All right. So I'd like to request of the committee a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the presentations. Is that okay?
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All
Thank
right.
you, Madam Chairperson.
Welcome back to the Public Works Committee today. We are now starting into the reports. We have transit here.
Yes.
And Mr. Clerk, we'll start with the first item on the agenda.
Yes, first item is primary transit network communications and promotional plan.
Okay, so this is really important, committee members. This is how we're communicating this whole plan. Sounds simple. Okay,
So
That's
good
right.
morning, I'm Greg Wonka, Director of Transit. I have a number of staff members here with me today. We have Bjorn Radstrom, Manager of Service Development, Kevin Sturgeon, Senior Planner, Project Manager for the Primary Transit Network, Melissa Clark, Manager of Communications, Megan Benedictson, Communications Officer, and Teresa Platt, Manager of Client Services. With that, we'll get Kevin to start us off with an overview.
Thank you. On June 29th, 2025, Winnipeg Transit will launch our new transit network that we call the Primary Transit Network, and it's Peter Routes. This communication and promotions plan outlines how we plan to let all of Winnipeg know that the routes and bus stops are changing. The communication and promotion plan was developed in consultation with city councilors, transit staff, including bus operators, and stakeholders representing organizations that serve the disability community. The biggest single promotional tactic will be that a few months in advance of the change, people will start to see thousands of new bus stop signs with a new design and new route numbers start to appear on streets throughout the city. We're also proposing a community organization toolkit. This will be a web-based collection of resources that community organizations, schools, city councilors, and others can distribute within their existing networks to get the word out at a grassroots level. This will be our first priority, and we plan to release this in late January 2025. The next milestone will be in late April 2025. At that time, we will have detailed schedules available, and we'll begin our broader advertising campaign to let people know about the changes and how to find information on getting where they need to go. This will include paid advertising in a variety of media, including social media and traditional media. Closer to the launch date, we plan pop-up sessions at major transit stops and busy public spaces throughout the city. And during the launch week, transit staff will be spread throughout the city, helping people who may have questions on their way. And finally, we will have another round of promotions in the late part of summer to capture people like students who may not have ridden transit throughout the summer.
Right, so the back to school.
That's right. And so with that report, I did take any questions you might have.
all right. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. So you kind of touched on, I wrote down some questions. You kind of touched upon, you're going, along the way, you're going to be providing series of back or changes to the transit network to educate the public. And with a date of June 29th, this is when everything will kind of jump off. How many different planned strategy sessions do you have along the way? Starting from April, you said?
So the big promotional push begins at the same time as our detailed schedules become available, and that will be late April 2025.
Mhm.
So the message at that time will be your bus stops and bus routes are changing, and here's how to find more information. And so through all the consistent message through everything we do, whether it's in-person sessions or advertising, or the community toolkit or anything, is just essentially that simple. All the bus stops and bus routes are changing, and here's how to find more information. And there's a variety of ways of finding more information, 311, Navigo, third-party apps. And we're looking into a particular third-party app that offers a network previewer mode.
Okay.
And so that would just be a more user-friendly interface than some of the other options that we have available. Consistent messaging though, bus routes, bus stops are changing on June 29th. And that'll be through everything that we do.
So you've got print media, you've got news media, you've got social media. In terms of print media though, are you also reaching out to cultural community newspapers? There's a lot of people that, rely on the community newspapers or cultural community newspapers. There's the Filipino Express, there's the Jewish Review, there's the Indo-Canadian Telegraph. There's a bunch of different cultural newspapers out there. Are you getting the message out to them as well so that they can disseminate it? When you look at, you know, passengers, it's a diverse mix of individuals, and certainly pushing it out through cultural community newspapers will be a great way of you know, alerting individuals within specific cultural groups.
Yeah, so we'll have two things in that respect. We'll have some paid advertising in a variety of print media. But for the community groups, including groups that represent a particular culture or other group, we have the community organization toolkit. And so those resources will be available in several languages with the intent that they distributed at a grassroots level. So we'll provide some content and get the word out, and hopefully in working with all types of organizations, they'll include some of that content and information in whatever media they have, whether it's newsletters, some community radio programs, or whatever they have, social media, et cetera.
And how do you intend to portray this on the Transit's website? Are there going to be FAQs, or like what's the plan and strategy there?
Yeah, quite a bit on our website. So the community organization toolkit will be one part of the website, and all the different resources that fall under that will all be web-based. And in the sort of more regular part of the website and on the Navigo app, we'll have banners alerting people that a big change is coming. We'll have frequently asked questions that will continue to update as time goes on. To the more questions that come in, if it really is a frequently asked question, we'll post the question and answer in a more generic format on the website. And so we'll be continuously updating that from January to June.
Last question. Are you planning to do any advertising on existing buses? Putting up panels, just saying, you know, change is coming.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we on the interior of the buses, we have an advertising contract for those ad spaces. We have a certain number of spaces we can use for free, and we'll even be going a bit beyond that with some paid advertising on the buses.
And you're using QR codes where a person can scan and get all of the information?
Yes, that's part of the.
And for those that are visually impaired, you'll have auditory announcements saying changes coming, and accessibility towards that, so that, again, they're aware of persons with visual challenges will be able to hear the changes that are coming and find out more information.
Yes. For example, on the app and on the third-party app that we're looking into partnering with, there would be a banner, and so that would be screen reader compatible. So anyone using that app with a screen reader, that would be part of the text that's read out in using that app.
Okay.
Can I jump in now? Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Good questions. In terms of the community organization toolkits, what languages are they in? You mentioned a few different languages.
Right now, we're contemplating English, French, Tagalog, and Punjabi, and we're open to expanding that to more languages.
Yeah, and I don't know how Chinese fits in there. Councillor Luke's, Councillor Chambers would have a little bit more experience with that, but those are good, Tagalog and Punjabi. Now, you said contemplating because we need to get help with that. So how are we making sure we have the right translation?
We'll be working with translation services for that, and I believe they have networks
Provinces
in city.
in the city.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And in terms of earned media, can you speak to that?
Yeah, earned media is a phrase that we use for.
No, I know what it is.
Oh,
but
yeah.
What's the plan?
The plan.
Wait, I don't know what it is.
Okay, so
Explain.
paid media is advertising, so media placements that we pay for. Earned media is when we work with members of the local media and pitch to them saying, we have a story here we'd like you to cover, or put out a news release saying this is an important thing that's happening.
So it's on our plan. We can't actually guarantee what level of earned media we get, but in terms of making those relationships and reaching out and letting people know if this is happening and it's an important thing to cover for our city, we'll be doing that.
Good. That's great. On the heels of what Councillor Chambers was saying about cultural groups, I've heard from Filipino community, for example, they have a few newspapers. I've heard over the years that they never get reached out to. It's actually a fact. Like, I know that that's the case, and how can we change that? Because they're not going to put anything in their radio station or the newspaper if they don't know about it. They just have to wait for the release. We're not being proactive. So-
Maybe you could get a list of the media
Well, we've
outlets that
talked
they
about this
contact.
before in the past too, so, and I know you're really eager, and I know we can change the dial on that, but we should.
Okay.
Okay, we should, because I think there's a big gap there.
And that is part of the plan.
Yeah,
And we have used, for example, specifically the Filipino radio station to promote things in transit before, such as recruitment. We've reached out to several
yeah,
cultural.
yeah, recruitment, which is great. It's great we did that, but sometimes we wait till we're desperate, where we're like, oh, it's so bad and we need drivers, but we're not doing it on recycling, transit, you know? So many things. I've heard this over time. And so thank you for raising it. And we've actually raised it years ago when it was a different crop of people in communications. So I'd really like to see some movement there. Not everybody's reading mainstream media. It's difficult even for us, someone that subscribes. I'm behind the eight ball and doing my reading. And so I'm always trying to catch up that week because I do want to read it all. I want to know what's happening. But not everybody, people are using different sources of to get their information. Yeah, so the community organization toolkit, different languages. Can you explain a little bit more what that is?
I would just caution that it may not be every single resource that's in the toolkit, but what we've been looking at is a fact sheet that kind of gives a good overview as being the tactic that we have translated into different languages. So that if there is an organization that they can print that out and basically, put it up and or distribute it, that it's there for them.
Excellent. And newsletters, what does that mean exactly?
So that would be an example of a news story that different organizations that have their own newsletters can use.
Right.
So we could say, here's an overview of what's happening. You
Yeah.
can take that language, pop it into your newsletter, and
Right.
then the next time you have an opportunity to send it out, it's in there.
Right, so it's sort of like Our City, Our Stories?
Yes.
Yeah, because folks
Something
use that too.
in that form that other people can use.
Excellent. And these pop-up sessions, that's good. How is that gonna work?
The pop-up sessions, at this point, we're kind of looking operationally at how we're gonna staff it, so we don't have an exact overview of what they're gonna look like right now to share. But basically, it will have us transit out on the street ahead of the launch time so that people who are having trouble planning their trips can be assisted.
Sure. Yeah, so those pop-up, like you've done different pop-ups in the community over time we have when we do consultations, that kind of thing.
Yes.
I'd be happy to help in Northwest Winnipeg, Garden City Shopping Center, Seven Oaks Arena. We've had a lot of these pop-ups in the past and they're well attended. If it's difficult to resource staff, even if you had one person and the counselors there, that can be enough. And I'd be happy to stay there from start to finish because there's going to be a lot of questions. And it's just all about getting the information out, as Councillor Lukes keeps reminding us to be proactive. Because otherwise it gets really messy close to the launch date. She's gone through this already before, so.
Yeah, but mine was a different experience than you guys are gonna have.
Yeah, we're hopefully gonna have a better one.
Well, mine was great. Yours is not gonna be as good.
You had some things you had to tweak as well. Well, ours is. gonna be
Remember
great,
some
so-
problems
so-
in that.
I know, but I mean, in the big picture, because people eased into it because of the
Sure.
pandemic.
Like this is super important that we're looking at this plan today and I think it's important for counselors to be involved because we all have databases where we can push the information out, but we need it in a good time frame. If we're getting it, you know what I mean? Just at the last minute, it doesn't help because then we have to drop everything to put it out. And so I'd really like to be a part of this process and to get information out to my residents. And I think others would.
That's great, and we appreciate that offer. Thank you. And as far as sending that information out to counselors, the plan in January is to
Yes.
council seminar form, just so that councilors can ask us questions and that we can provide that.
Excellent.
So just I wanted to hear that. So just that was my question. So run by this again. So in January, you're going to have a counselor seminar. It's not gonna be like a ta-da, this is set in stone. It's gonna be here's the draft, not the final, but because what if people had input that was good, goodness sakes, imagine what would happen if it's ta-da.
If there are things that come up out of that meeting that are significant and that are important to include, we will absolutely do that. The idea though, at that seminar would be to provide that toolkit so that those counselors and those organizations can start to disseminate that information, but.
Yeah, and
definitely if
that's
there's
great, because
information.
what happens is, here's a council seminar, then we read about it in the media tomorrow, or it comes out, well, we don't want, like, I don't want that, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but maybe we have to have the council seminar at the end of December, or in December or something. I think, I wasn't attending the event that Councillor Edie was at yesterday, I think you had a Zoom, but I think there were a lot of things that were brought up, if I'm not mistaken, that the EAs brought up. Imagine that the EAs, like, people don't talk to councillors or EAs. We have to deal with 50, 60,000 people. We actually hear some things that are actually interesting. As Mr. Berzalski pointed out, we're reading about it in the paper, right? So there's actually things that people bring forward to us that we hear that are interesting, that we can add value. So I personally don't want to, here it is, ta-da, we're sending it out tomorrow, so you can send it to your groups.
Yeah, and that won't be the case. Our public launch for all of our materials won't be until April. So there'll be lots of time if there's adjustment that need to be made.
April. So we aren't getting these things to community groups till April?
Nope, the idea would be, sorry,
No, that's
you
all
want
right.
to take over?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the community toolkit we are wanting to release in late January. We
Right.
wanted to have the council seminar with a finalized version of the community toolkit.
Right, we don't want that.
Said, we have been discussing that the community toolkit is not dead and done in late January, because there are going to be bits and pieces of information that we don't necessarily have in early January that will work out as we're getting our schedules made. So as more information becomes available, as we get ideas for other things that could be an asset that we didn't necessarily think of in the community toolkit initially, if someone comes to us with a great idea, we can add it to this list of resources. So it might not be there in January, but it might be there in February or March in the landing page. of
Okay, but
individual resources.
just to that point, so if I'm sending these out to my 30 different community groups, I don't want to go, here it is in January. Oh gee, here's more in February, here's more in March. I'm just asking that before you do the final version, that you have a council seminar with a draft version, that if there's input at that council seminar, that maybe you'll get nothing. Sometimes that happens. But if you do, that could be included, because when you start sending out 10 pieces of information to a community group for expecting them to distribute it all, I hear stuff will percolate up and stuff will, but if we can try and capture as much as we can right off the bat, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Committee members, do you have any comments on this?
Just on that note, I'm wondering about the seminar. Is it going to be the way you did it, Kevin, with 2 slots, and counselors and the EAs came? Or is it going to be just counselors?
Good question.
Okay, because it was valuable when I thought it was when you had 2 different slots.
Because the
How did
EAs
you
will
feel?
be also dealing with
Yeah,
it.
so the EAs came and it was come and go. How did you feel that worked?
Well, we make the request for a council seminar, and between the CAO's office and the mayor's office, that can be determined.
Well, okay, so what she's saying is, instead of the council
Yes,
seminar,
yes.
which has to go through all that stuff, maybe what we
It's
do
an
is
information session.
do information sessions, which you guys can do at your convenience when you want, and we don't have to go through all the rigmarole.
Because you did it recently, Kevin, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you all did. What was that topic again? It was the.
It was the master plan.
Master plan, and it worked well.
That was
thought
on
it did.
this communications from the last,
No,
In
but before
council info
that, you did
sessions.
it on the big.
But we
plan.
did it on this communications plan as well.
yeah, we've had
Right.
2
Yes, you've done
different
it on
ones
this
this
as
year.
well.
Right, but that was very drafty, which was
Yeah.
good, that was good, but
But it
now we're
was
getting
the
down to
same.
the kick.
It was the information session though, right? It wasn't a seminar because EAs came.
That's right.
EAs do not
Yeah.
come to council
They
seminar.
were both drop-in
Yeah,
info
so
sessions for
that-
counselors and stuff.
That works well for us, it seems. Does it work well for you, Greg?
It does, yes, it doesn't seem like we're on a different page. That's not what I'm hearing here.
Here I am.
I don't think so. I think what Alyssa is saying is that we'll bring forward the information. There is opportunity for change, but we can't have a wholesale change out at that point. She said if it was something that was needing change, that was a critical change, that was helpful to the process, absolutely. But if we're looking at, now you see the materials and it's a wholesale change out, it would be pretty hard for us to accommodate that at that point.
Well, what's a wholesale change out?
I don't know if
I don't know what that term
if you don't like the creative, if you don't like what is drafted completely, well, then that's a problem because we're running out of time,
Well,
right?
Okay, did I?
this is gonna be huge, you guys. You're gonna be dealing with the calls, your EAs are gonna be dealing with the calls. So just saying, it's up to you.
Then we should dive into this soon as a committee
Can I
and
just,
look at it.
Yes, Counselor Eadie?
let me just jump in here a second. So anyway, the EA part, they're gonna be more interested in detail, right? So Transit can actually run a training session for our EAs that will cover this stuff. The seminar I'm talking about, we're gonna have an overall look. But correct me if I'm wrong, these community, it's gonna get into a fair amount of detail about using the system. So wording, like I don't see how we would make a wholesale change. The system is the way it is and it's gonna work the way it is, right? So it's a matter of disseminating the information. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Chairperson, but you're quite concerned about the language.
Well, if they don't call
Sort of
you, they're
the
gonna call the
opening-
transit chair, so, you know.
Well, so, sorry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to finish just to confirm, John, it's like more about the overall message as you get into the community package, right?
Yeah, like I just
That's
think
what
that
you're
like
more worried
all
about.
my community groups, right? I'm gonna give them this package and they're all volunteers and they're all busy and I'm gonna give it to them. And if I see the ta-da package, which sounds like what we're going for, then, okay, here's another month later, here's something else, another month later, here's something else. You know, like if we can actually see a draft version and have input before, you know, we've seen a couple drafts, big, great,
I'm
Gantt
not gonna be
charts. all
making
of
wholesale changes.
make wholesale changes. We're gonna just think of our people and how our people communicate and how this package will work with them. But it's up to you, like,
Yeah, no, and so, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, this is the biggest change to
I know what you
transit.
don't know.
To transit, what, 70 years, 75
Ever.
years?
Ever.
So essentially, to Councillor Eadie's point, I would like to see my staff be trained, almost become SMEs, subject matter experts, on changes that impact the residents in my ward
And how to tell them how
and how
to,
to tell them to adapt to these changes.
not just leave it up to them, because the most calls 311 gets, other than the regular stuff, is transit calls.
So a comprehensive training for staff, I think, would be beneficial to, assuage the concerns that are raised from the community, because they used to take the 14, now they're taking a different bus altogether. And it's gonna, potentially take them down a different route. Am I gonna get to my final destination at the end of this? So it's learning the new transit system and being able to answer questions. I know that's not what we do, but because we're making this fundamental change, we're gonna have to do it for a while until residents get used to this change. So if there's an opportunity for, again, even if it's just our EAs to get some sort of training, to bring them up to speed so that when they're answering these calls, because potentially 311 is gonna be flooded with calls like what's going on here. And as much as we try to prepare residents, change is one of the biggest things to overcome. So for me, again, I would like to see our staff get trained and them having more of a functional knowledge of what these changes are, what it represents to our constituents, and how we can overcome their fears about going to the wrong destination.
You're missing a transfer spot.
I don't think there's any reason we couldn't update the community toolkit based on feedback from councillors and councillors staff, but I do think that the presentation to councilors can't be earlier than late January. And so that would push the public launch of that material into February if we allocate time.
I'd sooner do that and have everyone give their input and the EAs give their input and walk people through it. Then January, like what's another month? February, then people have February, March, April, May. There will be a transition for the summer months, but the real heat will hit in the fall months. That's when the real push will be. And I guess my question is, because I got to go to 11:30 for a bit. What's happening with 311 and the staffing of 311 for this? And how is 311 being trained on this?
We're just starting those discussions about how to train 311. On the project team, we have a former leader from 311 on a contract basis, and she's helping navigate that question, but we're just in the beginning of making that part of the plan.
And then I guess the question is, if you don't have an app and you can't get all this stuff on your phone, what do people do? They call 311, right?
That's right.
Like how many calls does 311 get on transit? Do you guys have any idea off the top of your head? I'm sure it's on the chart, but
We're the bulk of it,
you're the bulk of it.
scheduling.
Right. So if people have apps and they have all these systems on their phones, I mean, I just go stand at the end of the road because I know the bus will come because that's the way it is at South End now. But if it's the bulk of 311 calls. I'm having to assume those people don't have a phone or an app on a phone. So how are we, I mean, I guess 311 staffing up, but you're working with them on that. But if they can't get through to 311, they're going to these guys.
Telebus is also an option for them.
Speaking of an app, are you looking at that one, which is totally accessible?
Yes, that's the transit app.
That's our app,
That's-
or is that
No, that's a third-party vendor, and that is the app that we're contemplating, that we've been communicating with that company.
So you already know, I can tell you it's already accessible to people who are blind. That app there, this app, people who use apps, they already have this app loaded. It's the best one in the for Winnipeg, right? So I'm sure a lot of people will have it.
That's great to hear.
Already be using it. So there will be a bunch of people with.
Okay.
with the
But I'm
app.
seeing all the people that are phoning. Why are they phoning? It's because they don't have, I guess they can't look
Well,
it up.
iPhone-
I don't know why they-
Or something.
I have my app. This is for getting the time at the stop or finding us, okay?
Right,
So when I'm nearby, I can go into this app and then it'll tell me,
right, but you don't phone 311, do you?
oh, I do.
You do?
Oh, no, something, yeah, because
Right.
well, a lot of the calls I think 311 are getting is, where the heck what happened to that bus? Hopefully the new system doesn't have the same experience that we do, but sometimes I will make a call because the problem is our transit system runs on a very, the frequent networks are running on very loud streets. So even when I find it easier to call because I can't hear my app, standing over here at the console. You should stand there and find out how loud that is. It is so loud. And even calling 311 in the moment, right? So.
Madam Chair, for me, Kevin, these tactics. So
Pardon me?
just so I'm understanding it, Kevin, the tactics that we talked about in January, are you going to have them all detailed or are you still working through some of them?
So most of the tactics take place between April and
They're going
June.
to be rolled out at different times.
And that's because the core message relies on the schedules being available,
Right,
Right.
which we will only be in place in late April.
right.
In January, it's more of a preparation type message. Get ready, become aware, that between April and June, there's going to be more that you will have to do.
Yeah, and for context, initially, we were just going to do a very detailed campaign starting in April when schedules are ready. But when we met with various stakeholders who work with organizations with people with disabilities, they said that they needed more time to kind of set the stage.
Yeah.
So the goal of the community organization toolkit is to set the stage and get people ready to plan their trips in April. But there are some details we can't include because
We don't have a schedule.
Yes.
So I have to go. Do we have to make a motion so that we have, we won't call them council
I
seminars?
just have, I'm sorry, I do have,
No, you can keep talking. My last question before I go, Councilor Chambers is gonna take the chair. So are we going to, do we need a motion so that we can have a couple, we won't call them counselor seminars, we'll call them information sessions. Do we need a motion for that? Are you guys gonna do that?
But if that's something that's easier for you, it's easier for us to plan the sessions than it is to do a council.
Yeah,
seminar.
like,
So if
yeah.
that's something that you would
Yeah.
prefer, that's
Yes,
totally
my
fine with
preferred.
us.
But then do we need it as a motion to go to council, full council, or
Okay?
do we need it as a motion to go
No.
to full council?
No.
No,
No.
It's already part of our plan. I don't
Well,
know.
we've
that you need a
articulated it
motion.
today
right.
Yeah.
and it's
But
been
this,
noted.
this report stops here, but I'd also like you to move it right through to council so we can talk about it at council, so everyone else can all make a big, oh, it does go to council, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, okay. Okay,
Good. Yeah.
okay.
So is there any further discussion? Go ahead.
I
Councilor.
have some, so you covered off the languages, so that's good, and sounds like you're responding really well to that, various communities. Questions that came up yesterday with, at a Transit Plus meeting, but nevertheless, it'll be a concern for persons with disabilities in the new system, but one thing that was mentioned was like, will you have a community thing that pertains to school divisions?
Yes, we're already in contact with the school divisions. We'll continue to be in contact with them. The community organization toolkit will also be useful to them. And then they will also be part of the late summer communication tactic or plan to, the part of the plan.
So they can distribute to their parents and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
Good. In terms of you're gonna have to have text associated with where that stop is, right? It won't just be a stop number. You haven't fleshed all those out yet, have you? Like,
As in the specific location of all the new stops.
Yeah.
That's not all decided or determined. That a lot of it will come as they put the stop in the ground based on utility conflicts and so on. But we plan to have the people that are installing the new bus stop signs and posts tag the location with GPS to get it very precise. And then that would go into our data.
Yeah.
And then eventually from our data, it would get into the apps. And the app that you mentioned earlier as an example, I believe it can provide detailed walking directions to
oh yeah, I know.
the bus stop.
It's pretty good, yeah.
sign
No,
and-
there's a lot of features in this thing. By the way, will that app include, we know that On Request and Transit Plus there'll be a specific app related to that.
Yes.
Will that also be plugged into this third-party app?
Yeah, one of the gaps we know we have in our in-house app is that it doesn't identify that trend that On Request could be used for part of your trip. And so you have to know about On Request to use the On Request app. So you have two separate apps, but you have to be aware that you need to use two separate apps. So to address that gap that we currently have, the third-party app does integrate those. And so it'll tell you, if you're searching for a trip that begins or ends in an On Request zone, it'll tell you about the existence of the On Request service. If the trip that you're planning to take is right away, it'll give you a link, a button to transfer over to be able to book that On Request trip right away. We don't do pre-bookings in On Request, so if you're looking for a trip, in the future, it'll just tell you that it's available.
Yep.
But if the trip you're looking for is right now, then it'll even give you that button to make.
But the On Request is gonna plug into our primary network, right?
That's right.
They'll pick me up a couple at the corner On Request, and they'll take me over to, I gotta get over from the south end to the north end. It'll take me to frequent transit route where I can jump on and go, right?
That's right.
Or roll on or whatever, and we do have accessible, conventional buses, right? So, okay, one thing that I always found advantageous, outside of, well, I never found Navigo very navigable. This app was way better than, anyway, I don't want to get into that, but there used to be on the website, when you got into routes, you could choose a route and have all the stops listed. First in say the easterly direction, and then switch it over to the westerly, and you can see every stop on that route. Will you have that feature built into your transit website?
That functionality on the website will be the same as it is today, but the listing of every route is a feature in that third-party app as well.
Yeah, but city. So, okay, anyway, some people learn routes different ways. The app is a real-time thing. I use it, I go on to Main Street. People are mostly using it. What time's the bus coming? This is the stop, whatever number the concert hall is. I gotta get home, right, up in West Alone. So, it's good to study routes. Because I'm one of those people who likes to know how the whole system works. I'm not very good on the feeders, but I could jump on a 14 right now, and I know the bus stops because I studied them. So I know where I need to get off, right? So anyway, you're gonna have to do it anyway to set up your GPS, and it'll have a text as to where it is. Say it's Seven Oaks in Maine or whatever. Anyway, I'm just suggesting that date is there.
One of the functions that we're proposing, again, with that third-party app is what they call the network previewer mode.
Right.
And so when you, as you mentioned,
On here, it's a map though. Like when I go into this app and I go to list the route, it's a map. Right?
It's both a map and a listing of all the stops generally from the point where you're at or where you're making the query from to the end of the route in that direction. And so in the network previewer mode, you'll be able to choose a location. The default will be the location you're currently in.
I'm going to choose a route.
But you can choose any location.
Can I choose eastbound or westbound or northbound or southbound?
Yeah. So yes, but it's based on not in the sense of like a drop down menu, like choose this route and then it'll tell you all the stops. But if you choose a location, the buses that serve that location, if there's more than one route, it'll include all of them. You can pick from those buses and routes, it'll tell you all the stops on that route from that point to the end of the route. And so by going through the city, choosing different locations, you could eventually explore the whole system in the way that you're describing.
Never used Navigo. No, we'll move forward, but I'm just saying that's insufficient, but whatever.
Do you have more questions?
I have one more question, I think. There's a whole list of targeting, and I think I'm good with that. And you're gonna get, like, there's a new radios, there's some new multilingual media outlets coming, right? That have been approved by the CRTC. So I see QR code for drivers. I see in the list, right? Is that correct? Like for the driver to be able to, if someone comes on the bus to.
Yeah, one of the suggestions we got from bus operators was if they could have whether it's a pamphlet or a business card type of thing, or just some small printed material that gives the highest level of information and then a QR code for more information. And then when, they anticipate, of course, that on the first few days of operation, passengers coming onto the bus will have a lot of questions. Bus operators won't be in a good position to spend a lot of time answering those questions because they're supposed to be driving the bus. So if they have, whether it's a business card or a pamphlet or something like that that they can hand out just really quickly with the highest level of information in print and then a QR code for more information.
Okay.
So that's what we're referring to there.
Right, and the new bus stop signs and stop signs or whatever, is that utilizing a QR code?
Not the bus stop signs themselves, the metal plates that'll go up on the poles don't have, and they're quite high, they won't have a QR code. At some stops, we'll have supplemental notices depending on the information we need to convey. Not every stop will have a supplemental notice, but the ones that do would have that QR code in the corner of the notice.
Okay, so, all right, but we have those we do, under the new system, I don't know if that's being set up right away, but we're going to have these sort of hub stops, right?
Yeah, for now it would just
That
be
would
similar to what we have.
require a lot more information, right, than...
Yeah, so at places like a mall hub, like at Polo Park, Garden City, Hildona Place, St. Vital Center, etc., we have information kiosks. We'll be updating information in those locations.
Okay, so that'll all be, okay, good.
Okay, I just need to advise that we've lost our live stream, so we're going to recess. We should recess now maybe till 12:30.
Okay, what happens sometimes in that case at council, or well, even at committee, we can keep going, but it will be posted later, Peter?
Yes.
Okay. Can we keep proceeding?
You want to keep going?
It's up to the committee yet.
Okay.
Okay.
How long is it going to be out for? We don't know.
We don't know, but hopefully a few minutes at most.
Okay, well, let's
Okay, we'll
proceed
keep
and
going.
maybe advise the chair.
Okay.
Anyway, I've asked all the questions.
Okay, I just have one question as well, and we have the community safety officers deployed on some of the more problematic routes. Is there any training going to be happening for CSOs so that, I mean, even as a matter of de-escalation, sometimes a person misses their stop, and that's what triggers them or gets them to a heightened stage. Are we planning to train the CSOs just to give them some high-level information on, again, okay, this is the new route, you're going to stop here, and try to de-escalate from that standpoint?
Yeah, we are in constant communication with Bob and his team.
Okay.
And we actually work with them quite extensively on changes that we have in training and a whole realm of activities. So we'll continue to do that.
Good. And this morning he was at the Manitoba Justice Crime Prevention Breakfast, and it's Dr. Bob.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll need a motion to accept this as information.
And also noting that we're going to have
Information sessions.
information sessions for council.
Okay, and somebody will move it?
I'll move that.
All those in, seconded by Councillor Eady. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. On to item 2. Winnipeg Transit.
There's no secondary.
No, second, okay. Winnipeg Transit Plus eligibility criteria.
Teresa Flatt's going to speak to that for us today.
Okay.
So yes, happy to speak to this motion about eligibility and clarify some points that was identified earlier. The review of eligibility is one of the final ombudsman recommendations, as well as the no-show cancellation policy. It is also identified in the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan and is also identified as a requirement for the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, Accessible Transportation Standard Regulation. We have discussed this with our Policy Advisory Committee, with the community and stakeholders at public information sessions, and that the next phase is looking at eligibility for Transit Plus service. We are currently in conversation with a consultant who will assist in developing a plan for eligibility. That also includes support persons. Again, that's all linked back to the AMA. And that plan will include a jurisdictional scan of the best practices in transit properties in North America. That will also include public engagement sessions, as well as an internal or a committee above and beyond the policy advisory committee that includes stakeholders, many of which that were identified today. And we have discussed that with some of the stakeholders that committee is coming and that would be developed. So with the consultant, there would be review of processes and then recommendations for the implementation. There's also in discussions this morning, as well as with the processes that we're reviewing for the ATSR, it does look at the accommodation for individuals. We've had, especially with the new launch of the system in the summer with SPARE, we've had requests for accommodations for vehicles. And with this new system, it did reveal the need for us to develop a new process to review those requests. We do those cases individually. They are individual assessments. And we certainly work with a consultant that reviews those cases as well. We are also involved with legal to ensure that we are following the Human Rights Code. That's of utmost importance to us in the processes that we develop and policies we develop. We have met, I've presented with the subcommittee of the Human Rights Council as well as the Accessible Inclusion Committee, looking to present information about Transit Plus, seeking feedback. We've done that recently with the executive assistants to counselors as well. We do that with information sessions from our customers. So we are quite deliberate in how we seek information. Our policy advisory committee is very key to, and is our mandate to have concerns come back from the public, from their customers and clients through the stakeholders to that committee. We meet on a monthly basis. And this is where we have an opportunity to hear from all of the stakeholders, as well as customers. There are 2 customers that are represented on the policy advisory committee as well, to raise concerns and action items for us to identify and to look at recommendations and actions. This summer, we did have some backlogs and some delays in some of our assessments. And we have mitigated that by contracting out some services for assessments. So we have caught up to those assessments, as well as the accommodation requests. We are working currently through that right now. So I think there was also concern about a case that had been open previously, that we'd worked with the committee members of a certain location for a pickup and drop off location. That issue has been raised again from a construction point of view with the building, and we are working with that building directly. With the eligibility, that's a significant policy change and certainly won't be resolved within 180 days. It is something that does need to be completed by January 1st, 2027, and we are working diligently towards that goal. And that it is recommended that the public service comes back with a verbal report in June, which is when Transit Plus has our annual report coming back to the committee. And at that point, we can provide an update as to where the eligibility is and where we are with the consultant at that time.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Eady.
So to be it resolved, in the text as you read it, Ms. Black, that is what you're currently reviewing and moving through, making some changes, right?
it's starting to look at a plan to review eligibility. And within that will be public information sessions, scan. So the whole concept of nothing, about us without us is certainly built into this plan. We just haven't got there yet, but it's certainly part of the plan, and we will have discussions with our stakeholders, our policy advisory committee, and sessions with customers in general, citizens as well.
So I think what I'm hearing from the policy advisory is that it's not happening fast enough. Is that right? Would that be?
I think we're working as diligent as we can with the resources that we have. And this really is next on the list of our action items to complete after the launch. So this launch this summer was a significant launch. It was probably the largest. This was the new scheduling system that resulted in the efficiencies in our scheduling system, self-serve tools where customers have access to an app now for Transit Plus, an automated phone line where they can bypass the contact center altogether if they choose, so that they have instant access to the service, which wasn't available previously, but certainly is now.
So at our meeting yesterday afternoon, so there was a reference to account. So you're looking at some changes now after the implementation policy changes. What's happening in regards to accounts, or maybe future intentions about the persons with disability accounts set up for Transit Plus?
Is that in relation to paying for service? Or
Well, I thought I heard that, so at some point before we, a couple of there were accounts established for persons with disabilities who were taking the bus, and money would be in that account. It was specific, it was almost like a Transit Plus bank account, which money would be in there to pay for fares. Are you looking at going away from that? Because I just heard I heard Patrick talk about somebody saying, well, I'm moving my account money or whatever.
So we have actually addressed all the accounts where when we were launching, we had a couple of months of grace period as to what people were choosing to do with their accounts, but that we were topping up individuals going to eCash, which is what the new system is for payment for Transit Plus, which is eCash and not an account-based system. So anyone who had an account balance, we rounded that up to the $5 in their favor. So that is how we transitioned individuals to the new payment system.
So in other words, there are no more accounts. It's all the whatever.
eCash is what
eCash.
We're relying on now, which allows customers to have more access in a different way to pay. They can have debit, cash, credit card, which again, we didn't have those options previously.
Right. All right. Just wanted to confirm that. So that's kind of an old response that somebody might have done. Okay. So there's nothing in these be it resolved that it looks like you're reflecting on these as Transit Plus is moving into the future, right? So do you have any problem with undertaking that be it resolved? Because you are already consulting, as you said. And
we are moving forward on all of the initiatives that are linked to the master plan and that are also linked to the Ombudsman's Office recommendations, as well as the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, Transportation Regulations. So we're moving in the direction, as quickly as we can, again, with the resources that we have.
But our recommendation is to come forward with an update at the June meeting when she's bringing forward an annual or semi-annual report. So if they can coincide, that would be preferred.
okay. Okay, that's the preference, okay.
And the eligibility criteria, I mean, this is something that is certainly on our radar and quite frankly, beginning to be under review. The department has gone through an extensive launch on our scheduling system, which took all of our resources to be able to get that done. And quite frankly, it launched with tremendous success. We're quite happy about that. And now we're moving on to the other items that we have on our to-do list, so to speak, eligibility being one of them.
I think that's gonna be very important with, so June, you're coming with an update, so you can reflect on, it's a primary network, it's gonna have an effect, right? You're gonna have people who are quite capable of walking, but when you're a senior and you're walking in snow and ice, to get to your stop in a residential area, right? People living downtown get pretty good snow clearing service, so that's ice mitigation, but although some people complain, but I mean, your system is integrating with the street system. So the primary network is going to result in more people needing to use Transit Plus. Whether, so that has to be factored into whatever eligibility criteria is being thought of.
I think it also opens up opportunities. It opens up opportunities in what we call our family of services. And Teresa or Bjorn can talk a little bit more about it with our transit hubs and the way Transit Plus will work with our conventional service.
I wish I lived in a non-request area.
So I think it'll present a lot more opportunity than what we have today.
Okay, anyway, I think that has to be part of when you're looking at eligibility, that really has to be part of it, right? So,
I think another important aspect that we heard here today was about our transit policies and where they're located. They are on our website. They're available. Yes, they are on our website. They're identified there. They're also discussed at our policy advisory committee and available to those committee members. And of course, anyone else that requires them. So
Could we make sure Debbie gets a copy, Teresa?
Yes, we share all of our policies with our policy advisory committee, so I can go back in the emails that we've
Sure,
sent.
but she
and-
just
and
couldn't find
resend
it, she
them.
was saying.
Yeah, we can resend
Maybe
it.
we can just follow up with her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the folks we heard from today, they obviously don't know we're embarking on this soon, right? They didn't know it was in the queue?
We've had discussions,
Okay.
and there were discussions that a committee would be born out of this so that we can hear from customers and stakeholders. And once receiving some next steps, we'll be able to proceed with that. Some resources.
Timeline is not known right now.
As soon as we have an exact date and time, we'll certainly let people know, but it is now next on our list after the launch that's just happened. Yeah,
I've had other projects.
we have.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. It has been expressed to members of the committee that there were some staff that left Transit Plus because they had concerns on how they were conducting assessments and whether in fact it met the standards of human rights codes. Are you up to speed on this?
Not, I haven't heard about not being up to standards with human rights codes. I haven't heard that.
Mr. Chairperson, I would perhaps caution the committee that that sounds like a human resources matter.
Okay.
Jason Schreier.
Mr. Clerk, are we online again? Or
Hold on a second.
Oh,
here.
right.
In saying that though, Counselor, the department, Transit Plus, works very closely with legal services.
Hold on,
And-
hold on. Great, go ahead, sorry.
With legal services to make sure we're in alignment. And Teresa works very closely with the Ombudsman's office.
Okay.
So I would be somewhat surprised to hear if we're off base anywhere.
All right, I mean, I received this information, we had some conversation. And it was just a matter of raising it in the sense that there were some concerns with regards to eligibility and how those assessments were taking place and whether they met the standards of human rights.
Well, I can tell you, or Teresa can tell you, that we have outsourced, right?
Yes, so for the assessments, at this point, we have contracted services that are conducting all of our assessments. And healthcare providers have a competency and a code of ethics that they have to adhere to. The assessments are hand in hand with those competencies. And again, we work very closely with legal, ensuring that we also are within the human rights code and very mindful and deliberate about how we conduct assessments, how we interact with our customers and stakeholders. So that's something that we have very much at the forefront of what we do.
So have you had staff that left in the last several months?
I think the city itself has had some,
Specifically in Transit Plus?
we have had some turnover at Transit Plus in the past several months.
So just to be clear, so Marcus, this is calling for an evaluation against professional standards, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Through physicians and occupational therapy.
so proposed in June, they're coming back with an update report, right? And this would be part of it as according to the Director of Transit.
So Counselor, if I may, what I understand the direction to be here would be that this committee would recommend to council that the Winnipeg Public Service be directed to report back to the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works at its June 12th, 2025 meeting with an update on changes to the Winnipeg Transit Plus policy is currently underway.
We would like that update to be in the annual report that's coming forward rather than a separate report. That's is it the semi-annual on the Policy Advisory Committee or?
Annual Transit Plus report or on the semi-annual advisory committee.
Okay.
We'll have two of them coming up. That's
Right, yeah, okay.
And that will still be the 180 days, June 12th?
I think it's different by a
Slightly
month.
more than 180 days,
Yeah.
but yes.
Okay. All right. Do I have somebody to move that?
I'm moving that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Those carried.
Very good, thank you.
On to item 3, Goods and Movement Advisory Committee.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, good morning. David Patton, Constitution, Public Works. So for this item number 3, the Goods Movement Advisory Committee Annual Report, I'm going to request on behalf of the Public Service an extension of 120 days. We have been meeting with the Goods Movement Advisory Committee. We just haven't got the report completed. So I would like to request a 120-day extension.
Any questions?
How many days?
120. We'll aim to get it back before then, but I know that if we just ask for like say
It's not
30
even
days,
written at all yet, right? There's no.
we've got notes taken. We've had minutes of the meetings. We just got to put it together into a
report. Okay.
When was this committee struck?
It was last year.
Yeah.
2023, yeah. This is the first annual.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
So before we call the question, I would like to make a amending motion that we add a member of this committee onto this, a member of the Standing Policy Committee onto this GMC. Goods Movement Advisory Committee.
Okay. Who wants to be on there?
The chair?
Okay, she communicated that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Many of them, yeah.
Discussion on it. Comments on that?
The council Luke's has attended a number of the meetings on, so when we've had topics that have been of interest or that have, like, she's been asked to attend. I'm not sure if all the advisory committees have members of council on them. I believe some do and some don't. There's several committees like this. There's ATAC, active transportation.
How
There's the
often?
transit one. It's monthly. Yeah, except during the summer, what we've been doing is we said no meeting during the summer because it's challenging for the members to all attend because many of them are very busy.
And given the importance of moving goods and services around the city, and the economic impacts it has for the city, there is interest to have that political representation. So again, amending motion to add
Well,
the.
through the chair, which is yourself, the political representation is this committee. So it's kind of odd in a way that we're creating working relationships, coming back to report to a committee, which is to provide that direction towards executive policy and or council, and then to have representation of the committee on the group. So you're doubling your political representation. This is the public political discussion on those items. The working group is more or less working together, public service and industry, whoever that is, to present information to the elected officials for insight and guidance or direction. So I believe, for whatever reason right now, we believe that we need political intervention in the actual work versus the political advisory and support at a higher level. I personally would be concerned with this.
I hear that as well.
I hear your comments. I'm just wondering, Mr. Clerk, can you just give examples of other committees?
I can't
Or-
believe.
Advisor.
There's the transit one.
There's a transit one and there's the active transportation. one.
Transit
Yes.
Advisory Committee,
Yep.
but that's a lot. It's internal. Is it some
This is
stakeholders?
internal.
Yeah.
Well, this, again, when we talk, just like, so we're all open and transparent about our roles and responsibility in governance, this is essentially a goods movement advisory committee that was driven from a number of transportation focused advisory entities wanting to have more of a say in the various modes of transportation and goods movement. And that opportunity was to work more extensively, like others, within the public service, so that information could be articulated possibly more effectively to the elected officials. And I think it was a great opportunity here that we had with the goods movement. No, not much different than the ATAC group, which is the essentially the kind of a active transportation advisory committee support network as well.
So the lobbyists like Bike Winnipeg is obviously on one man, Winnipeg Trails, they have representation on ATAC.
So the chair has attended as a guest from time to
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So maybe we can leave it at that for now. I do understand what Jim's saying as well. This is a political body. And then they need to build their relationships and do their work, and we need to trust them with that. So there's, the chair is back.
Yeah, and the chair-
About representation on the,
Goods
that's-
Goods Movement Advisory. I've made
and as a guest from.
I've made a amendment to include the chair
Oh,
as a
okay,
member of
Sure.
this committee.
sure, okay. That was the problem. Is there a problem?
Like what we've talked about, yeah, there is actually a problem in an open and transparent environment here with the city of Winnipeg and the public service. These working groups are created to bring information forth to the elected officials, and this one Goods Movement Advisory Committee is to bring forth information to the political realm for advice, guidance, possible recommendations that you would consider as an electoral body. When you're identifying elected officials to be a part of a committee, a working committee, you're now taking,
Represent a conflict.
we're correct. I believe it is.
How does that work with the act?
Well, we have, we,
Transportation Advisory Committee.
yeah.
He's trying
So we're
to.
I just want one question answered for. So this was established a year ago?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
No, more than a
What?
year ago.
No,
More than
October
whatever.
10th, 2023.
Okay, hang on. I just want an answer because this might go to what Jim's talking about. I just want to know, did this particular advisory committee provide input into the transportation master plan, which we haven't passed, by the way, the city, right? Are they reporting directly into our public service who are putting together that transportation master plan?
I can speak to that. Thank you for the question, Councillor. The GMAC group has been involved working with the Transportation Master Plan team. We actually made a modification to the Transportation Master Plan in that there was an internal report on goods movement that was going to stay internal and not be presented as part of the final package. But because of the comments that we received from GMAC, that now sort of has the same sort of standing as the other major elements that are going to be presented to council. So they have had feedback. We are actually at the next meeting of the GMAC group, we are going through the TMP in detail with them, the draft form of it before we bring it to council.
Right.
So they have had input. We have because.
And that'll be part of this will be a consultation report regarding the transportation master plan. There's been several already, right?
That's right.
And that will be a report unto itself when that comes, right?
There's content and on that, yes.
All right.
And through the chair, the existing or the current chair, again, when we did identified the terms of reference that were approved by Public Works back in October 10th, 2023, the mandate and purpose was, again, at the request, one of the mandates was at the request of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works, provide advice on goods movement in Winnipeg and such other areas of policy or related matters as may arise from some of the other mandates. So we're really structured the way we need to be. And again, the political information and understanding is this committee. If at any time the chair wants to attend to hear something maybe current or what's in the news, we've entertained that. To be a direct representative of that, I believe deviates from your committee. I really do. And I think just from a public service perspective, it's deviating from the work we need to do prior to a political realm.
So it's kind of like putting the chairperson on the study on
It could be
ag.
perceived as.
I think she's good with the way
that's
that
fine.
she's saying.
That's
So let's
fine.
move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, I'll draw my amendment then.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll move the extension of 120 days. I think
It was 180.
180.
We had 120.
We'll make it 120 days, please.
And why is that?
Just that we're not ready to present it yet. We've got minutes from meetings. We've got sort of we're starting to work on it. It's not complete.
So you need 120 days.
We'll get it within 120 days. If we say 30 days, that's impossible to get it in 30 days is the timeline.
That would meant it had to be.
We're moving for up to 120 days.
Yes.
Question.
Okay, are you still the chair? Am I still the chair now?
I'll give the chair back to you.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, the next report is on Cambridge Street traffic management plans. The public service is requesting an extension of 150 days on this one. I can give a mini update. We've been working with a consultant on the project. We have some draft solutions, and the next step is going to be taking that to the area councillor, which we just completed the conversation with the councillor. We'll be taking it to the sort of the ad hoc community committee that's been championing this, and then to the public in the area we're working on how to do that consultation, that engagement with the public. And then our aim is to move forward with this next year. But we're going to request 150 days to finalize that process.
Is this the process that we follow when anyone applies for traffic calming? Like when I think of the traffic calming project that I have on Lake Crest or I'm blanking right now in Bridgewater Trails, it was a 3-year process. You did a online public consultation process. You did a mailer. Like, I don't recall any personal public meetings. Like, why are we
This
changing the
report,
process?
this project is slightly different to the standard process because of the way it came through to the councillor and to this committee. If this had been a standard project, it would have had a different timeline, but we're very familiar with this project, having had years of conversations with the councillor and the community committee, the ad hoc committee on this. So it was a relatively rapid project to get it completed. It is atypical and we don't typically do them this way.
So I think they should be appreciative of the fact that they're getting a bit of an accelerated version of it.
Yes.
I mean, they can feel however they want.
They can feel however
But I
they
guess I
want,
just want
yeah.
to point that out, that they're not following the usual process that we have set up that everyone else has to follow.
Yeah, this is sort of a hybrid between the small projects that we typically do as a result of this committee directing us to go look at location X, location Y, and do a report on it, and something that's sort of almost but not quite a community study, which would be a multi-year study like the Lord Roberts neighborhood study.
Okay, so then you're coming back here in how many days?
150 days.
150 days, okay? Anyone have any questions on this one? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Who
Oh,
moved
sorry.
it?
Wait, who moved it? Okay. Council Chambers moved it. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Public Works Street Bylaw Enforcement. Okay,
Okay, this is another report where we request an extension on a 150 days. The reason for this one being extended was because staff have not had time to work on this in depth because of the construction season. So now that construction season is coming to an end, we have time to work on this.
Just in terms of, just for, I'm new on the committee, so I'm not over there. So which streets, this is about the streets inspector.
Streets bylaw, yes.
is this part of the big
Street
bylaw?
bylaw, so,
Well, this was,
so help me out, so just to make sure I understand who the streets bylaw people are, this is the one where we have like one person that handles all of the North District, one that handles all of the South District, and one that handles all of the East District.
and one that handles traffic management issues as well as a primary responsibility. So we have 4. Well, we actually
one
have
there
5
is the
right now,
whole
because
city.
one's on retainer. But that's the same group, counselor.
That is, and we're looking for a review because
We're-
I personally feel it's inadequate. So those, so the, whoever's doing the cross jurisdictional to see how other cities are running their program and how many people and all that. That's, they were actually monitoring some construction projects, is that?
We also have a constable that's responsible for reviewing construction projects, one for the whole city. We just had recently had them, we hired a new one. Because the constable was retiring, so that's a separate topic. It's related to this, but the streets bylaw is more like things that are in the street, like abandoned cars and piles of dirt. And when people
They
have street
inspect
parties,
broken down curves and stuff like that too.
they'll bring that information in. We also have one that does construction where
We
it's
had that
looking at,
gentleman who did it, I believe he was 85 years old.
so we're looking, yeah, so we do have these constables. They are heavily worked. They do have, there's more tasks they could be working on than what, there's manpower to do it. So this report is good, and in addition to this, there's also the larger public service project that's looking at reorganizing how all these enforcement bylaw officers are organized, and so they are under one umbrella or multiple umbrella.
We don't want to work for the parking authority. Don't give me that.
So, well,
Just so you know,
yeah.
I'm just.
Okay, so yes, we are working on a report to say what do other cities have in place? Do we need more staff? Do we need to modify how it's laid out? I'm gonna be bringing recommendations for.
So just for clarification, what does MBEA stand for?
The Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act.
Okay. Yeah, it just came up without any reference to.
Again, the original report was approved by council back in January 25th, 2024. And that report had,
It was earlier this year.
and that had the updated fee schedule as well. But subsequently within the report was, I believe, through SPC Public Works, it was questioned whether there's enough resources to effectively deliver on that.
It's all great to have these rules, but no one's,
Does resources equate to revenue?
yes.
Well, yeah, of course, when you're talking about enforcement, there's two ways there. In your initial state, you would say yes, but through education and awareness of that enforcement, it should then balance out. And if we have that problem consistently, like some of our bylaws not being either administered or followed or even ignored by the city,
Right.
then
Because you're under resourced.
these are impacted as a result of all those decisions.
The residents in the areas are concerned.
Like camping within a right of way right now or a park.
Anyway, our budget policy needs to align with our.
The enforcement aspect of, is it mill rate support or is it fine support paid? So cost neutral.
Jason, the streets bylaw, I believe it's not mill rate support, is it, for the bylaw officers in streets?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't believe
So
so.
then it's cost neutral.
That should be cost neutral, yeah.
It's not. You're charging a fee.
The fees is through our enforcement, that would be the
So
construction
what they
industry.
collect on fines is covering their cost.
Well, I don't have the exact number of what our revenues versus our
I don't think
expenditures are.
it's budgeted, it's not budgeted to be a cost recovery basis.
Not full.
Does MPI provide supports or resources?
No.
No.
So where's the revenue covered to cover off the people we have in place right now?
Where does the revenue go from the fines?
No. How is it? Where's the money to pay the salaries of our four?
Oh, it's funded through our public works program.
Yes, or
Operations, yeah.
Yeah, so it's supported by property tax. Yeah, right. Isn't your operating covered by?
Well, there's a number of things that, but when we talk about revenues, expenses, I have Mr. Jason Ruby here, the manager of finance.
So help me understand, Jason. So it's operational dollars, which Public Works is vast majority of the operational dollars come from property taxes.
there would be frontage levies and other, there would be a good deal of mill rate support as well as frontage levy or main revenue sources.
All right, so you're just using, okay, all right, thanks.
Well, we're not like, as Mr. Ruby said, we're not a cost neutral,
I get that.
full cost neutral environment for
No, I
the
get it.
service, yeah.
Well, I'm getting, yeah, I heard it say property taxes are paying for it, so.
But what I wasn't sure of is the level of detail of, like, for the, the number of permits that are taken out within the city and the value of those permits, if it was just strictly on inspections that we were recovering that money for, or it provided enforcement support as well. So I don't know the breakdown of that. I mean, we could, actually, it's a valuable piece of information for the report, though. I'd like to mention.
If my colleagues are okay, I'll move the extension request of 150 days.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay,
Next report is updated cost estimates for pedestrian and cycling line painting. There's a request here from the public service for a 150-day extension. And the reason is as follows: the traffic signals branch has been diverting staff time away from reports to complete construction projects due to good weather extending construction season. Work is commenced on the report, but it's incomplete and has been deferred until after the construction season wraps up.
Sure, I'm fine with that. Hopefully there might be some developments in the budget. I don't know, but that might be nice,
Maybe.
but we don't know. Okay, so,
I'll move that.
perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, the next report is on the traffic study intersection of McPhillips Street and Court Avenue, also Templeton. This report looked at some concerns that were being raised about queuing and congestion around the new development that makes up the east end of precinct E, I believe it is. This is the area that's it's Court Avenue, Templeton North, and it's bounded by Pipeline Road, and behind the Walmart, McPhillips is to the east.
So this, just if I could pause, this came from our community committee, the report, as Councillor Edie and I have heard it already. And this particular location, traffic lights went up
Yeah,
not too long ago in 2022. Councillor Lukes was there to open them with me. Okay, go ahead, David. Yeah, Templeton.
the north line of Templeton.
But there continues to be so much development there. It's already backed up. I'm worried when all the apartments come online. Anyways, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for that. So when the precinct study was done, it was assumed that traffic would flow both east and west out of the new development to get onto Pipeline Road as well as McPhillips is.
To either leave.
Yeah, to enter or leave. But what's happened is because of the speed and the pace of development, all the traffic is flowing to McPhillips. And so the intersections are getting overwhelmed because McPhillips is such a busy road and there's small gaps for traffic to get on and off of McPhillips. Traffic queues up on Templeton and Court. We were asked to take a look at it. Could we make improvements to Court? It's limited opportunity to improve it there, but we did look internally in public service and we've got a plan for improvements to be made to the leg of the Templeton Avenue North intersection. However, there's a cost associated with doing this. It's significant. It's in the range of $300,000. We don't have a budget to do this right away. What we were talking about solutions and how to move forward on this in the future. It was proposed either we would what the public service was thinking is as a possible solution would be to package this set of improvements up with other similar sized improvements and bring either a business case forward in the future for a budget ask or look for ways to use existing budgets that the Public Works Transportation has and possibly try to find some way to fast track this. And in talks with the area councilor, she's asked if we can fast track this, so we can look for ways to find a way to get this done, possibly like bundling it with other work that's going on in this area in the new year.
So finding a budget out of the roads budget and not the active transportation budget or
It's not, it doesn't really fall into active transportation, but possibly the road safety improvement program, formerly TEIP. This might fall in there, but it's a very large ask of that.
Amount for that.
Yeah,
So the
usually those
roads
projects are smaller, like pedestrian crossings or little tweaks to
right.
driveways and things. This is a 300,000.
Program was for.
Yeah,
So it would be better to be put into a roads budget package of some kind, is what you're saying? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's right. We'd have to talk to engineering about that. Right now, we were bringing this forward just for information only, but if we actually wanted to move forward with this to get it in the ground, further discussion would have to take place.
Yes, it will have to come back.
I'm gonna ask that it does, like, well, I want to receive it as information, but to get another update later. And in between, maybe see what discussions can be had internally. What is the disconnect between approving these developments, PP&D, and then traffic, like what we're left with in the end, right? Density is good, but sometimes it's,
wait to hear the answer.
well, I don't think we have the answer right here, but I just want to put that on the record that you know, it's wonderful to approve and have more density, et cetera, but when pipeline's not widened yet, and this is the
Yeah.
only way out, court's not accessible at the moment.
No,
In part, like one of the issues, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, or anyone to stand there, but sometimes in Winnipeg, it's the case that the development gets far ahead of the improvements that are needed to make that development, like to service that development. So intersections with signals that are needed, road widening that needs to take
That's
place.
something that should be considered development agreements.
Yes, I was.
it already is.
It's a challenge because sometimes the agreements cover some of the improvements, but we don't tie any improvement to a specific development, especially when an area is piecemeal like this. It's multiple small developments. They can't just say, here's my portion of, say, the pipeline improvement.
But so can contribute to a fund.
Well, that's what every developer does today. Like fundamentally, what's changed in this city outside of growth is the safety first aspect versus when growth occurs, then your build out support occurs with it. So when prior, before the last 10 years, it was once you have enough traffic volume or the traffic volume that actually serves that, and which is different than what they would have had on that day. But once that traffic capacity hits a certain point, that's when that signal's needed. In today's world, as soon as there's one additional vehicle on that roadway turning and they're frustrated, they go to the elected officials and say, where's our signal? That's the fundamental difference in the last 10 years is we need it now, we need it immediately, and we don't care about when it's actually fully needed. We want it now and we want it today. And that is the difference. So what's happened is, like if you look at Court is not fully built out. Court is currently closed. There's a lot of traffic though that serves the Walmart, and people use that access, which is the wrong access. They should be using the North Templeton access, which is lighted, to access ingress and egress to Walmart. They want to go the Courtway. The Courtway stacked, and so we must need a light. Well, if we collect all from the developers that build out on Court down the road, we will have the money for that light. So then we have to make a decision publicly here as elected officials to say, where are we getting the money from to front up all these infrastructure improvements that people say they need day one, that in the past we waited till we collected the full funds? It's kind of like future servicing agreements as well for rural.
In that case, building it now, wouldn't the cost be less? And then we collect from that future services account?
So where do you as elected bodies find the money? And if you have that solution,
Development comes forward.
then you're creating what is called a
Reconcile.
revolving fund, right? Somebody's gonna end up possibly short because the person that isn't getting that work or does get that work down the time, the first in money versus the first out money, there's gonna be a variance all the time.
That really these should be waiting until the rest of Court builds out? Is that what
Well,
you're
some
saying?
of them you really have to take, and again, our traffic engineering group will provide recommendations, and they'll say, they'll provide a recommendation that says that light at Court probably shouldn't happen until this section of Court is built out. And if anybody knows, I know Councillor Sharma knows Court very well. The build out is occurring from the Walmart property line to Pipeline Road. And so there's current infrastructure being built at the pipeline side. There's infrastructure being built at the Walmart side. We have the new apartment blocks right behind there. And so you would not want to make your final improvements because things also change based on what was originally identified. And so you want to make sure you're building that correctly. One of the other challenges is when we do collect developer funds for, future funds for traffic signal, at the time, what was looked upon versus what happens 10 years later are also different. So the turning lanes at Templeton North, for example, they were constructed for the service area that was identified. And yeah, we may be collected for the future lights, but we didn't see that probably as such a major intersection as it is now.
Right.
So then there's requirement for possibly an additional turning lane or geometric improvement in that area.
So to your point earlier, you talked about, the individual that wants the light there, because they've been inconvenienced somehow.
And that's where you put your request in,
Yeah.
sorry, through the chair, because I know where you're going. The elected official then asks for a traffic study. And then traffic engineering does another traffic study to say it's not yet warranted, but it will be when this built out.
So, and again, going back to the old TEIP, is that it, right? TIEP.
Yeah, traffic engineering improvement program. Yeah.
TEIP. So, I recall that some of the assessments were warranted but unfunded.
Correct.
Okay, so in a situation like that, where would we find funding? Like, we have a situation like court where, and say for argument's sake, it is warranted but unfunded. Can we not fund it and then factor in that cost for future development?
So again, and David should speak on this, and I'll just pass.
This one, no, we're not doing
Yeah.
anything on four.
No,
We're
but
not,
this is an example.
we're receiving it as information.
Yeah, but it's more Templeton and McPherson will get.
No, I'm
to
just
that.
using this as an example.
Go ahead, yeah.
I want to put, this is,
Well, Councillor
Well, can you
Chambers is
answer my
asking
question
something.
first, please?
all right,
Something.
okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so when we have unfunded improvements, what we typically will do is we'll try and find a way to get them funded in the future. So we bundle
Yeah,
them
but-
together and then bring it up as a business case for a project to be funded. We find funding for it through the budget process. Because with the TIP program, which is now called the Road Safety Improvement Program,
It's limited.
it was never meant to build big things like signals and major improvements to intersections. It was always meant to do small scale improvements.
But to my point, I think our city is continually growing.
Yeah.
And so we have to have a mechanism in place where we can address safety factors as they come up. And so save the example of court. I'm now looking at, say, Creek Bend on St. Anne's.
Yeah.
And again, there's developments going on, I think potentially 3 developments going 1269 St. Anne's Road, 180 Creek Bend and 120 Creek Bend. So there's density going in there.
Yeah, where we have projects like that, those either be covered through the sort of, like we had come up with the development agreements to pay for those improvements, or we would use the road safety program to pay for those. If it's a definite safety issue, then we say, this is gonna happen, can't wait for it, and we use the funds for that.
So it seems there's growing pains and then there becomes an more urgent issue to address something. Like there's a continuum
Yes.
of the issue in here. Back to this one is, there's
But
so much growth there.
The
And-
challenge is, I was gonna, to anticipate where you may be going with this.
Yeah.
Sometimes the issue of, oh, it's just congestion, oh, just wait in line. That can become a safety issue because if people get frustrated with the congestion, they start to make unsafe decisions because they have been waiting in the queue so long. When they get to the intersection, they may not wait for a good gap to get into traffic. They may say, I'm just gonna shoot into the gap and create a safety issue. And then we see it through increased numbers of incidents, numbers of rear end accidents, that type of thing.
Trying to get onto the main corridor, right?
Yeah.
And there's not really a lot of other opportunities. I know Councillor East tried to.
Okay, all right. So right now, we hope that the people using it will use pipeline to get to either Leela or Templeton. Leela's pretty close to it, it's not that far. So now, we've approved all the development along pipeline to Templeton and even just north of Templeton up to where the proposed Chief Pegulas extension would go through. Now, Public Works has defined twinning. I guess they're saying we're waiting for development to happen and developers to pay in to the twin, put in proper street for pipeline, but to the city limits. I think, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but we have developers who have paid in money all the way to north of Templeton. Why can't we put in that extra lane now?
We are, to answer that question, the public service is working on the plans for the pipeline. I believe that right now it's within my division. We've got a staff member working on the plans, working on ensuring that the financing works and getting into the queue for engineering to then take it on and move forward with it as a project.
I think you have a situation where you need to do the twinning up to where all the development is going ahead. It's happening.
Yeah, rather than doing it.
It's done. The money's paid in. Let's at least get it done to the certain point where most of the development has happened already. The stuff along Court, it's coming along. That'll be there. Okay.
I believe one of the questions that was sort of in the mix on this is what standard to use for pipeline, whether it should be a rural standard or an urban standard.
So it's have to be an urban standard.
Yeah.
Well, between Leela and Templeton, it is. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it.
And then it broadens out, like you have the
And then
hydro.
we'll end up like forever on Henderson and forever on Main Street to get the sidewalks.
Get the sidewalks put in, exactly.
Sidewalks put in and then, so people have been struggling without sidewalks and
That is quite a challenge when you have hydro corridors and the lack of sidewalks. It seems like this is a problem all over the city.
I'm just saying, so, I mean, anyway, so I wanted to bring, so that's the first thing I wanted to bring attention, because that's how we were hoping that would take a load off, right? Of McPhillips, because McPhillips, you know, the further south you go, it's over capacity, right? Like it's, so.
And contributing to McPhillips as well is the lack of the Arlington Bridge being closed has thrown more traffic onto McPhillips.
I can't wait to get that report. Anyway, so I also wanted to bring attention to the committee. Councillor Paquin, there was big problems when Waterford Green was coming in and the interaction between Keewatin and Dr. Jose Rizal Way, I think it's called. He got the twinning done, but he got the developer to pay in, and then
That was upfront.
then he got the budget committee to pay for it, right?
That was a front ending agreement, I believe, Jason, Brad, on.
Yeah, that was front end.
there. Yeah.
And then Councillor Paquin was in the power, so he did get the money in the budget to do that twinning. But
He
Yeah.
pretended it.
but the twinning was really needed, but it was really neat, like.
We don't have money like.
I know.
Can I
Anyway,
move
and the last thing, I want to make one last comment. Because Templeton and Maine is interesting. So at the moment, if you wanna, like, there, at Fort McPhillips, the right-hand turn is not a problem. And it's a T intersection.
Well, it's a mandatory right-hand turn.
Well, I'm just saying, right-hand turns are not a problem there though. So you already put in the no left-hand turn to go north on McPhillips?
Yeah.
But have you put in the no left-hand turn to turn left onto Court, for northbound traffic on McPhillips?
No, I don't.
You
believe
did that
so.
at Templeton
It's
because
still available.
It's still available.
I'm telling you what, you did that at Templeton, which is great. Now, the amount of traffic, pedestrians wouldn't go near there, so you could measure pedestrian or whatever, but, for lights, but, transit was told, no, we're not putting in lights at Templeton and Main Street because it's too close to McKay, which goes into Kildonan Park. Now, in this case, Court, like the distance over to Templeton where there are lights. So would this thing even qualify for lights?
Are you talking about
In the
Temple?
future.
No.
He's talking about Court McPhillips.
Yeah.
No, but then I just referred to Court to Templeton is not much different in distance than McKay to
Like
Templeton.
right now, there's no plans, right?
No, I've talked to staff about this and they are reluctant at this time to put in lights at Court. That doesn't mean
Close to
it couldn't, because of the proximity to the intersections, we don't generally do so. There are locations in the city where you do have lights in close proximity to other lights, often at shopping
That's the case
centers.
right now, but let's see
Yeah.
how it performs later, the whole area, because
We'll see
I'm
how-
worried, there's so much
Yeah.
density.
Well,
Okay, Madam
But
Chair,
the challenge of putting lights next to other lights that are too close is that the queues can spill back.
3 times the density you
Yeah,
use.
and the lights are turning
But
green, but nobody
was it
can move
done?
because the queue is
No.
back through the other
There's a
intersection.
wager. Okay, all right, so I want to move this report forward. What I am happy about is that we had a chance to discuss it at the community committee. And here again, right now, we've got some numbers here. I'll receive it as information today. And I know there'll be some ongoing discussions. And I really want to see what's happening with Pipeline Road. I want to kind of get into that file and learn a little bit more. So I'll contact the administration about that discussion. So I'll receive it as information today, Madam Chair. I thank the department for the report.
Okay, motion's on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Item 8 is the crosswalk to Kinsman Sherbrooke Pool that Councillor Gilroy spoke on behalf this morning about wanting that pedestrian crossing at a location across from the Sherbrooke Pool, which is about 350 feet north of the Portage lights or the crossing for pedestrians.
350 feet?
Yeah, about that, yeah. And the Lions Manor, which is right at the corner of Portage and Sherbrooke, that's where those individuals could cross. Yeah, there's a number of concerns I would have if we were even to investigate this right now, because the Lions Manor owns a select set of properties just north of their right of way. So they own the properties on, yeah, they own the first 5 or 6 properties. So I'm not sure what development plans would be in play there. The other thing is the crossing at St. Matthews. You don't have direct access at the St. Matthews crossing that's available on the Maryland side right now. You would have to go down, walk through the right of way of the Lions Manor to get back to that, or else you're going down to Maine, across, or down to Portage and across and back up. So I'm not sure what we're facilitating here.
She say wanted to use it, like,
Well, she mentioned the Lions Manor, which has direct access to the
Right.
Portage crossing.
right,
Yeah,
right.
and there's no other properties on the other side.
So it's, yeah, no, I looked it up on the map. And I think one of the building was torn down. There's an empty lot. It looks like there's things progressing.
Well, yeah,
on
there's
the Lions Manor side.
on the Lions Manor side, it's open space
Yeah.
for their 5 properties, yes.
So, I mean, I don't really want to send off the department to study something when it's 350 feet away, across intersection.
I'll just add through the chair that I believe we received this as information. We have these notes now. We have to look at that development plans for the Lions Manor, what they're looking at for the future. And then possibly we can incorporate whatever that future is into some improvement for pedestrian crossing, dependent on what gets built there. And I'm assuming because the Lions Manor has procured that area north of their right of way, which is, it goes parking and then property, that they must be considering plans for future development. So that's when we would look at what can we do here with that developer obligation.
Right, so maybe the developer could contribute part of it too.
There you go.
It's,
Contribution.
yeah, okay, but we don't know if anything's happening there right now.
I'm not aware, so that doesn't mean that there's not, but I'm not aware.
Exactly. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. So how does the committee feel about that?
Well, so yeah, other developments have had to pay for, like, say,
Correct.
Signals or whatever is needed,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I'm referring to
Yeah,
through the
no, I
chair.
get it. Yeah, no, trying to figure out how to, but they're, like, we don't know how fast they're moving on that density, but I think they are, right?
Trying.
it's probably part of one of those, half-funded projects in the future, maybe, I don't know.
So,
I think I'm okay with receiving it as information. It is, Sherbrooke is pretty busy.
but it's 350 feet, like they
Yeah.
can, like the seniors can literally come out their door, walk like 5 feet to the crosswalk or to the
Yeah.
intersection and walk across the street, right? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. Okay,
okay.
so Councilor Edie's.
I'm not gonna move
Floor.
that. No, I'm not moving.
Are you not gonna move it?
I'm gonna vote.
Well, take the chair and I'll move it.
I'll take the chair.
Okay, all right, so, what we're saying is that because the proximity of the requested crosswalk is so close to an existing intersection, and we heard from the counselor that her concern was the, senior complex getting across the street, which literally they can walk out the door and it's 5 feet in front of the door, and then they find the cross the intersection, controlled intersection. There may be opportunities in the future because of proposed or potential future development, because Lions Manor owns that property. And I know they were taking down a building and it's an empty lot, that there may be an opportunity to help, if something goes forward, that the crosswalk be put in a right place. Or, you know, we don't know what they're building. We don't want to put in the driveway or something, right? So, and an opportunity to help fund it. So for those reasons, we'll receive it as information.
All right, anybody else want to make a comment? No. Okay, all those in favor?
All right, aye.
Is anybody opposed? No, that is carried. Chair, back to you.
Okay, all right, look, he's first Public Works meeting, and he's chairing it, and oh my goodness, okay. Okay, moving right along here.
Yeah, item number 9, the pedestrian corridor on Devonshire Drive West and Dawnville Drive. I spoke with the public service about where this one is at. And they advised me that this is the #1 location on the internal working list. And the intent is to complete it in 2025. So there's a, we don't know what quarter yet, but I looked at the list they provided me of, I believe there's 10 locations queued up. This one is at the top. It's got the funding in place for it. It's
You have that list?
I can supply it. I don't
That'd
have
be
it at
great.
hand, but I can
Sure,
get your copy.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay,
send it to committee.
Yes. I'll talk to Peter and have it provided.
okay. So this was really just a motion.
Yeah, and rather than
Do a
having to do
report
a
or something.
report on it, I just wanted to say
Sure,
where it's
okay.
at. And I was hoping that would,
It's already on the list.
Is the area councilor aware as well?
yeah, I will advise them as well. I believe they are, but they were probably asking where it's at. So
Perfect.
we'll get that information.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so then I guess we'll just receive this as information.
Still moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, item number 10, the award of contract for Portage and Main pedestrian opening, tender number 675-2024. Again, we heard earlier this morning from Transit about the June 29th, 2025 major changes to the whole transit.
Which will include pushing transit from Graham onto
Correct.
Portage Avenue.
So one of the fundamental requirements is to have the opening of Portage and Main completed prior to that June 29th, 2025 requirement from Transit. So this is contingent or critical to their success, and that is the fundamental reason why this project is happening. So on that note, Brad?
So this award is coming to the committee as it exceeds the Public Service Authority of $10 million. And it requires additional funds be reallocated from existing capital projects in the amount of $8.3 million. So that's why it's here. And the award would be contingent upon us securing construction easements or other devices in order to work on the private property at the intersection. So we wouldn't award it until we have that secured, subject to legal services being accepting of those.
How long is that gonna take?
If we made progress on three of the four locations. we need to have these in place by next week so the contractor can start work by November 18th.
So what about the fourth
Complete that.
location? Are you gonna have it in place by next week?
I don't know.
Right, right.
So Brad, we heard your comments in the media, we see the report, just run us through again, why the extra 8.3 million?
So the cost of the project, it was, we're trying to do a project that's a street renewal project in the middle of winter, which is something we've never done before. There's a lot of complexities around all four corners working in that area. We have to excavate, hoard the areas, work in tight spaces over the winter. So a lot of the costing came in a lot higher than we could have anticipated.
And it's a unique project. We don't have comparables, right?
We don't have a comparable project. In order to complete it by that time frame, this is the cost.
So it's more the time frame. It's we do curbs, we do all kinds of stuff. It's more the time frame.
It's the time
And
frame, but
membrane.
it's
Season.
there's a lot of
The
work
report, yeah.
dealing with around the existing foundations of the existing buildings. There's risk around it. There's unknowns. So that's all contributes to it.
So tell us about like the fines or the awards, or are there fines if they go over timelines, or are there reductions in, how does that work?
There are liquidated damages within the contract. I don't have that information exactly on me today, what that's in, but yeah, like any contract that we have, when we have critical dates, there's always liquidated damages tied to those dates as well.
That's a big risk, right?
That's part of the risk. A lot of the risk has to do with unknowns around the excavations and what we're gonna find in the top of the concourse. In those areas, there's risks around damaging like really expensive glass on some of the buildings and things like that. So there's we went through this with the contractor. The time frame requires them to have a very large administrative group working on this to keep things on task and in order to finish on this time frame.
So was this contract sole sourced?
No, it was bid, but we only had one bidder.
So when
So
That speaks to the complexity.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It was a publicly tendered bid
But only one bidder.
with only one bidder.
So on other projects where you have only one bid, like let's say you only got one on the St. Vital Bridge, I think there was a couple, right? But
We've done a couple of bridge projects where we've only had one bid.
so you just march on regardless?
We do, but lots of times we'll do change orders after the fact. We have to award it based on the original bid. We can't vary it before we award. But we can make change orders after the fact. In this case, after meeting with the contractor, we did a pre-award meeting. There's not a lot of opportunity here to change anything to lower the cost.
Follow up to my question then, I mean, one bidder, was the bid competitive? Especially with the fact that there were a lot of unknowns?
Well, it's with only one bidder, so I would say there's no competition because nobody else bids, so there is no comparable bid. Our
But the city must have
our pre-tender estimate was significantly lower
Okay.
than that, but it was a hard one. As we say in the report, that was a hard one to estimate because of the complexities in this project. In fact, the contractor shared that up to a few hours before you put the bid in, it was about 3 million higher.
So are we adding lanes here or?
No.
So it's just
This is all removal of the barriers,
Yeah.
installation of some structural slabs in some cases, like in front of the MMF property. There's a sunken area. We have to bring that back up to grade. We have to modify the staircase that comes into it. All the other areas, we have to go down towards the foundation. We have to waterproof the existing foundations underneath the new sidewalks. There's all the signal lights and all the staging that has to go along with it.
So, okay, so what's the game plan for weekends and things like that, working on weekends, and is there anything written into the contract like that, or? I guess if there's penalties, if there's
The
deadlines, that'll motivate them.
the contractor has a fixed date schedule, so
Right.
he's in control of that.
So now, is there a way to have something on the website, like it's a very major intersection, right? So I would like to know if I'm going downtown, what lanes are closed? Is there a way to have that daily posted?
Well, we post our lane closures map and our road construction map. Those are updated daily.
Yeah.
So when you say, is there a way? Well, right now, those mapping tools, and it also gives you a text roll to tell you what's closed and if that's the median lane or the curb lane.
So if I go there right now.
Yeah, if we go, like if we look right now, because yesterday I was at Portage and Main, there was nothing close.
Right,
So I was good, but if we go to either the road construction or lane closure map,
Yeah.
So for the duration, Jim, will it ever be fully closed?
No, we always have traffic
Something
staging through the
open, yeah.
We also update on ways.
But there will be, we got
Yeah,
four
see.
separate work sites.
they
so
pull
there'll
right off of
be People
it.
working
Yeah.
at 4 different
That's the lane.
locations
Is
at the
the-
same time.
Is the contractor absolutely confident they can meet the deadline?
So
They're gonna give it their best shot, like they're not gonna say definitively yes, but they worked out
That's the
their
goal.
price
Northbound
based
curb
on
lane
finishing on time.
closed. Okay, that's expected to end April 1st. So that northbound lane is gonna be closed till April 1st.
well, right now it is, yeah. I don't have the, like, again,
That'll probably change
Yeah.
as we start the work. So I hear what you're saying. You're really looking for more of an update. We'd have to work with our traffic management people to determine if there is any special way of reporting this.
well, right now they have the reason for the lane closures is related to the electrical lighting and
Right.
signals work.
Right.
So they put in a time frame in case they just put in a risk time frame. Those will get updated as things improve, like Brad says. But this is right now in the city. If you want to know what's closed on your route, then use that. And a lot of people are using Waze. Yeah, like when you use Waze, you have to understand that everybody else is receiving that same information. So if you're all going to the same destination, you're all being rerouted in a similar way, similar fashion, right? So there's a lot, like probably the Portage and Main will be the most heightened information because it's the only road construction project we got in the winter. Really, so,
Well, pretty much, yeah.
yeah, so everything
Okay,
else
so-
becomes
so
pretty
here's an
static.
example then. So then I've got various lane closure, this is for Portage, I'm at Portage Avenue, direction, northbound and southbound. It says various lane closures, see project website. Like, I guess, like these lane closures, some days will be this, some days will be that. Is
Those on the website
this
will be
the
better
only
at.
place, I'm actually
They're
afraid
not
to
gonna-
promote this.
I don't think they're gonna be changing on a daily basis while we're doing it. We're gonna be setting up the site. There might be specific times within that contract that it changes, but once the site's set up, it's not gonna change on a daily
Okay,
basis.
all right.
Like they're gonna literally have to set up frame
Things.
construction to hoard
the-
site areas in.
Or do you think they're gonna do one corner at a time, or they may do multiple?
They're gonna do multiple.
Multiple.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the same time.
Are you guys documenting this? This is historic.
Multiple.
There also is, I think Traffic Signals has a full closure coming up next week for certain work that they need to do. But that'll be a media release and everything else, right? So there's, when you get into these certain nuances that you're talking about,
Right.
more or less, anything that's that major has to be a news or a media release, right?
Yeah, but those would be for short durations and usually on weekends or overnight.
But when they come, there gotta be a media release is what I'm saying.
So let's talk how you rounded up the $8 million. Let's break that down.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Ross, I didn't see you. Sorry. All right, let Counselor Reed have a question.
So they are gonna do multiple corners of it. Anyway, I wanna look at the northwest corner. Okay, so, I hope that's not the one where we still don't have an agreement, whatever. But, okay, so there's a right turn lane only. So when you close that off, cause you're gonna have to close that lane down because that's where you're gonna be doing curbs and curb cuts and all that kind of stuff and whatever else work you gotta do. So does that mean the left-hand lane, the lane to the left, which is continue straight, will become your right-hand turn lane to go down Portage Avenue?
I don't have those details with me today on how we're gonna stage traffic through there. That is, we do have those details. I just don't have them.
Okay, a little worried we're gonna overload, Princess and,
Yeah,
it's gonna overload, oh my God.
there's gonna be pain through the intersection while this work is happening.
Yeah, yes, okay, all right. And then you wanted a review of where the 8 million was coming, which was gonna be, my question, where you're getting the money for the extra cost.
Okay, so like, what we did is we went and looked at a bunch of projects, older projects that date between 2016 and up to 2024. And ones that were completed the work and we could close out a portion of those projects and take some of those funds. There's also 4 line items for sidewalk work in the downtown, which is directly applicable to this type of work that we included as well. So from closing projects, there was about 4.8 million. The sidewalk renewal line items from 2021 to 2024, we found 2.4. And then there was a 2024 regional street various renewals that was a 1 million. I think that was unallocated money, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So that's how we came up with the money.
Okay, so the downtown, so that sidewalk money, that was all directed for downtown, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, are you taking any money from the local road program or, well, so you're talking major regional projects from 2016 and
They're all regional. They're all regional, yeah.
they're all regional?
They're all regional.
Yeah,
So
you're not taking any potential surpluses from these people?
No.
Cause I got some streets that need to be fixed. I don't care about what it should be. So nothing's coming from local. Okay.
No, and then like the other thing I could point out is that there's this basically taps out our previous road renewal program and leaves us with only about a $400,000 contingency on the program, which equates to about 0.1% of the program.
And that's
Okay, say
appendix
that
A.
again. Say that.
That's
If you,
Oh, yeah,
if you
okay.
select appendix A, what Brad just itemized.
It's a regional,
Yeah.
right?
That's the whole program.
That's the whole program.
Oh, local
Local
and,
and regional.
you only have 400? Really?
Yes.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
So you're using all that for this project?
We'd be using everything.
So what are we
There are
gonna
other
do if,
projects that are currently fully funded. We may be able to find contingencies as we close out those, but that's unknown at this point.
but you already know, like the contingency, our road program is essentially finished except for a winter project that we have here. Okay. Is that right? All right.
Okay, are you done? Can I ask a couple questions now? Any more questions from anyone? So on Appendix B, what is St. Mary's Road stable and safety for 3.2 million?
That was the stabilization project we did.
I know exactly. Okay, so that's residual then, so this is basically all residual.
That was left over.
No, that was the project. There's 800,000
Yeah.
left over to transfer.
Yeah.
That was
Oh.
a good project. That was bad.
No, yeah, but that was.
Okay, so, right here. So you're saying regional and local streets unallocated. So you're saying from this year's budget, you think you have 431,000 left? No, sorry. You have 23,000 left from this year's budget. Appendix B, regional and local streets unallocated.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Fine, here.
I was on the wrong appendix.
That's unallocated regional money, not unallocated
Regional and
local,
local.
I hope.
Regional and local, the unallocated is 23,000.
Local or regional?
So just so that I'm understanding that is from this year, all the road projects this year, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? You know that right now, you know that now. Because last I talked to Jim, you were $5 million over.
So right now, we've allocated what we know to the projects that are open and ongoing. Within those projects, there would be costs for all sorts of things, including signals, hydro, and a contingency on those projects. Will they come in over? Maybe. They could.
So what happened to the 5 million that he was over? About
Yeah, I'm
3
not
months
aware of
ago.
that conversation.
Okay, we'll wait till he comes back. Okay. So then you now have,
Or it could be at this point, if that was earlier in the year, it could be more that now we've awarded more projects and we know more. This is what our finance division came up with, so this would be the most accurate information we have to give.
so usually at this time of year, you can pull numbers on what your budget is?
It's,
We adjust project budgets on an ongoing basis, so
Yeah.
as the awards come in, we have an award value plus the other things that go along with that, and we have that brings us to an estimate for the project. Based on whether it's an over and under, we then adjust the budgets, but the internal budgets in the project subledger. So that's what you'll see is there's an adopted budget, which is the original amount that the project was budgeted at. And then there was the amended budget, which is tuned up and down based on how the bids are coming in and what the best estimate of the project is. So as is where is in our system right now, based on best estimate, we've allocated all our budgets with the exception of a small amount.
So why don't you have under regional and local streets, the adopted budget? Why is that 0?
Because that's our unallocated account. So this is
No, under adopted budget.
There's a,
correct, because when we adopted it, this is our over.
there's a line that they didn't say it was going.
Okay, we gotta just concentrate on what the public service is saying. Say it again.
So when we, based on the adopted budget, all our budget was allocated on individual projects. This represents, so there's nothing that was unallocated at the start. This is our overs and unders as projects are tuned up and down. So the adopted will be 0. What we've got left with or overs and unders or program contingency is in 2022, the 2022 account was 373,000 and the 2024 is similar, will not have a adopted, it'll just have an amended of 454,000. And then we adjusted for things we've known that has gone through from the September 30th monthly capital expenditures monthly report to time of history.
So I'm kind of not understanding this. When I look at St. Mary's Road, stable and safety, I'm reading that as a $3.2 million project. That project was a $3.2 million project,
Correct.
okay?
And the cost.
And then, you spent to date, unspent, forecast. I get all that. I just don't get why it's a 0. And the same for intersection improvements, Bishop and Lash, why it's 0. What was the adopted budget? Like, why are they 0? What was the adopted budget for regional and local streets? It says 0.
I'd have to, like generally if it's,
oh, that one I know. Is that was
Oh,
that one was part of the extension work that we did to extend Bishop Grant at the time.
Okay.
Into Sage Creek.
Sure.
So we had to come up with money for the intersection improvements at that intersection because the developers were responsible for that. They were responsible for the 2 lanes further east. So we came up with the budget for that. I believe there would have been probably a report at the time.
Yeah.
yeah, adopted budget would be something that's come through the budget process. Generally, when you see a 0 for adopted budget, it has probably become a project through administrative report.
It's not in the
Not-
20.
Regional and local streets aren't, that's an.
Well, that's our over under.
Depending on the cost, right?
So in 2016, like you had $1 million that you're sitting there waiting to transfer. Like I find it interesting, 2019, 2021, 683, 2022. Okay, well, maybe that's close. There could be some variables, but all the way back to 2016.
Pembina wasn't finished until this year. If you recall, we were finishing off that park work that's at the corner of, that's Osborne.
Call that.
Excuse me.
So that was
Drama
the
there.
Well, that's why the money's sitting there.
Yeah. And on those projects, they're funded over multiple years, so in the
Sure.
budget process, they'll be shown as different years in the budget. But because in the actuals, they're tracked as a single project, the money from subsequent budget years goes into the project that's set up at the initial budget year. So the money's been approved by council later than 2016 on that one.
So, all right. Anyway, in your calculations about this year's construction projects, so for example, you're estimating what next year's cost will be to restore boulevards and all that stuff. You've estimated that you'll have to pay the contractor for next year, right?
Yeah, any open project, we've got us, and we're maintaining the funds within the within those individual project line items for those things, yes. Are we right all the time? No.
So we're hoping you're right, because you're getting okay.
Okay, and then I guess my last question is, in regards, so this $8 million, the $8 million, I mean, it would have gone to street, where would it have gone?
Usually that would have been like our program contingency, that 5%. It's actually mentioned in the report that because we budget a program, we don't budget on a class 3 level. We budgeted more on a class 5 to a class 4 level. So as we're doing those projects, there's additional costs. So that keeps our project afloat in order to deliver all the projects. Subsequently now in 2025, we have to leave funding unallocated because we got nothing left.
So does that mean then for your upcoming projects that you will do a tighter class estimate or allow a larger contingency or what?
We can't really do a tighter class estimate because we don't do the engineering 2 to 3 years out ahead of time.
Sure.
So we do the engineering ahead, we get the estimates, and then we're basically going to construction. But program, because it's a rotating program, it works on that basis.
Yeah.
So that's why in 2025, we're going to leave unallocated funds on a number so that we have that cushion for next year. And there could come a time next year where if we don't think we have the funds, we may not award a project.
Right, depending on how things come in, the bids.
Depending how
all of
bids
that.
come in.
Right.
Depending on how much money we have left, and that's what Jason's group does for every award. They actually look at whether we have the funding to actually award it.
Right. And then, how will you determine, what criteria will you use to determine what doesn't and doesn't get done?
It's gonna be, it's basically first come, first serve as we're putting in the award reports. When they
Right,
come
sure.
to the end and say,
Sure. Oh,
nope.
got it.
And
Okay. Wow.
And there's gonna be more information on this, because right now we're at the very end of the construction season. So the consultant engineers and the construction company are working really hard in the field to bring things to the close. And then we'll get our progress buildings in over the next couple months for the work that's being brought to completion around right now in time. And then generally that's when they look at the contracts and they will reassess the values of the contract. So we have the information we have right now, but we may have different information 3 months from now.
And are we pretty confident then on the forecast to complete list, the values of the forecast to complete?
Like the carryover work.
Yeah.
We will have that like by probably the end of November.
But
it takes us a few weeks.
For the listing we have here. we are confident.
That's correct. Yeah, we went through all this.
Okay.
So let's have Jim answer the question, the $5 million question.
That's 8, isn't it?
He's back, right?
The other 5 million.
Apparently,
Earlier.
Oh, yes, earlier in the year, but it makes sense to me now when you're explaining this. Earlier in the year, Jim told me he's $5 million over budget on the local and
Oh,
on the
yeah.
streets.
It's the time thing.
But it's the timing, it's
Oh,
depending on
okay.
what comes in
yeah.
and
All right.
prices.
It's all timing, like you're starting off with the first 10 projects and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, folks, I think we only had one person here, Mr. Grant, talking about Portage and Main. This is the big, all the drama over the
Oh,
years.
there's people talking about it.
Well, I know, but I mean, I don't see anyone in committee other than Mr. Grant, but,
No, I had asked how confident the contractor is. They're gonna try their best. There's a goal. I'd like updates at this meeting, even if we can just have verbal updates. How are we making out with the construction? Are we
That's a
on
good point.
target?
Or do you have a plan?
Are we on timeline?
And perhaps we can bring Mr. Patman back because I want to know how traffic is going to be impacted. Once it's open to pedestrian crossing. And what the plan is there.
Like how the anticipation of the traffic movements?
Yeah.
Scope of work, like, is it a scramble intersection or what is it?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions. Hello, I'm David Patton again. Yeah, I'm back.
You're still on the road.
Yes, no sweat. It's not gonna be a scramble intersection. It's four-sided intersection. And we've got, we're looking at whether we needed to have the pedestrian crossings at all four legs. We had a plan that was we were looking at in the middle of the analysis was that maybe you only needed three legs. But we're putting the crossings at all four legs. We've been reviewing the micro simulation modeling that's been provided to us by the consultant. We're in the process of checking that for details before we sort of release internally the findings on.
What year it's saved here? Someone else.
For the traffic analysis, I believe it's Stantec.
It's Dylan, but.
Yeah, Dylan and Stantec working together on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Dylan.
Like they provided us sort of the raw data, the raw modeling. At the same time, all this other work's happening, everything's sort of like happening simultaneously to get the thing done. We are reviewing sort of the, how much delay there is to motorists and how much delay there is to transit on the different legs. So we haven't got the information finalized yet because the modeling is still being fine tuned. So once we have that, we can have it shared internally.
And there's still no appetite to allow a left turning from the southeast heading north, and you want to turn onto Portage from Main? There's no.
Yeah, we haven't added any movements, no. We still the movements that are already restricted are still being restricted. We're also looking at the number of turn lanes, and we have to modify that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're changing the, we're moving the lines back and modifying the intersection to add the pedestrian movements, adding the infrastructure. We're making changes to the geometry of the intersection as well at the same time.
The current highest volume turning movements are actually Portage Avenue, heading eastbound, turning northbound on the Main. That's the highest frequency of movement. Yeah. And so the lane configuration there.
So the lane configurations plus what transit needs out of the intersection, where the stops are, that's all in flux, and we're looking at that.
so are you gonna come back with updates or how are you gonna update the public on what's going on?
If you want verbal updates, we can provide those.
I mean, it's a condensed time frame. There should be lots to talk about every month or so. So we expect this to be done at the end of July,
End of June.
end of June, right, end of June.
Yes.
So.
First one in February?
For transit.
So January, February, March.
What we could look at is
2
critical.
months or.
We could look at critical stages,
Sure.
and what we'll do is we'll identify like a verbal update at a critical stage. Because if not, it might be, it'd be like the traffic signal work right now, like.
So through this process, will there be a education for pedestrians on crossing?
I would anticipate yes, through the road safety branch. That's like we take a look at what we want to emphasize to the public is we want you to cross it in one go. We don't want you to stop in the middle of the traffic and say, I'll do it in 2 stages. We want people to go start to finish in one movement. And that's how we're timing the signal for that.
The public education would be on regardless of where the intersection is. It's in our city.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the largest crossing in the city.
No, they can cross
But it's something new.
Yeah, you need.
But
It's not, we
with
can
the
make it
volume,
cross.
with the volume of traffic that goes through there and with the newness of it, I mean.
The one thing that people do lose sight of is, or for some reason appear that there's almost a perception that there's no way to cross downtown. There's 4 crossings adjacent to that intersection. And so public have been moving across that area for decades.
Could have been 5, actually, if you let people walk across at Lombard, but.
And while that's true, we also have a lot of newcomers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been here before.
So Jim, in terms of the
regular-
So then they would be new to it just like everybody else. So that-
Public education is.
Okay, Counselor Sharma, you got a question
Yeah,
now?
Jim, in terms of the public, verbal reports here, critical stages, we probably need like an approximate time, a date, right? So pick one maybe for now.
we can put it on monthly and we can either identify there's nothing substantive. And so we'll determine with our project manager.
Have a
Yeah.
better idea.
Perhaps instead of monthly, quarterly, perhaps?
Well, no.
Well, we're done in,
We'll be done in 2 parts.
yeah, I really appreciate that, Peter for mayor. No.
Okay, so are you doing any public updates, critical updates? Is that part of the game plan from public,
Just through the, I think just through the website mainly.
just through the
Just for the
website?
traffic.
Well, and whatever that entails.
What lanes are
We
closed?
could, we could certainly do, communications when there's a change in traffic or something like that.
Okay, so when Mr. Escobar was here and when there was a lot of drama on the last Portage and Main discussions way back in the day, he told me that all the timing of the lights would have to change downtown. The signalization lights, like it's going to impact all the timing.
The intersections are impacted by this, so the intersections will have to have their timings changed.
When do you work on all that?
They are right.
That is
It's on an
part of the
ongoing
traffic
basis.
modeling that they're doing.
Aren't they always working on that?
Yes.
In general, yeah, behind the scenes.
They're monitoring it, and if it has to be adjusted, they adjust it.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be done remotely, sometimes it has to be done in the field.
Probably fundamentally would be transit's changes and how that impacts traffic flows through these corridor networks.
That's also being assessed
Yeah.
as signals.
That probably is fundamentally the biggest impact.
Right,
Because they need extra time to get through the intersection.
right.
Before they did the Graham thing, I remember that, all the buses were doing Portage and Main.
Yes, yeah.
Coming through downtown, pretty, almost.
Okay.
Okay, so any more questions? If there's no more questions of the public service, we are going to make a very important decision here and
I just want you to know, Madam Chairperson,
yes.
I think we need to educate people. Don't even try crossing Portage and Main. It may not be the biggest, but don't try crossing Portage and Main in the middle of winter. I've had the experience. Not good. Anyway, I'm opposed to opening it to pedestrians, so I won't be voting for it.
Oh, you're not gonna vote for it. Okay. Okay, well, I'll call the question. Who's supportive of
Oh, and I
continuing?
just wanted to say, I really appreciate all the work that public serve, like, I mean, this is pretty heavy.
Well, I don't think we may be back here if there's surprises when the ground is open up, right? And there may be surprises, so hopefully there won't be, but, okay, so,
So
we're gonna make a,
yes, what I understand is that this committee would like to concur in the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service with the following amendment, add a new recommendation 2 and renumber the remaining recommendation accordingly. And this new recommendation 2 would be that the Winnipeg Public Service be directed to provide monthly verbal updates on the progress of the project to the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works.
Thank you.
okay,
I'll move that on your behalf here in the chair.
what are you gonna do?
Someone's got to move it.
Move, you're gonna move it,
Sure.
okay? Councilor Sharma's moving it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay,
Nay, what are you, in favor or
In
opposed?
favor.
In favor? Okay, so Sharma and, you recorded then, Sharma and Chambers in favor, Counselor Edie is opposed. All right, perfect. Motion for adjournment, someone?
So moved.
All right, all in favor, carry.